The story starts with a pathetic commoner crying, and some nobles laughing at him. One of the nobles mentions that he will grant the commoner a gift before his death, and he asks him to strike him with his magic. The commoner uses his magic, but he can only cast a puny flame, and this does nothing to the noble. The others laugh at him after seeing his weak magic, and the noble mentions that this is the best a commoner like him can do. He states that lineage, talent and diligence are the most important things for a mage, and these are the words of the father of magic named William Bordeaux. The noble mentions that magic will never smile upon a commoner like him, and he uses a powerful flame spell on the commoner. With this the commoner starts to burn, but instead of shouting in agony, he thinks that these flames are magnificent, and this must be the type of magic that a noble can use. He thinks that it's painful, but also beautiful, and he wishes that he could do something like this as well. He wishes that he could have learned and mastered more magic, and the scene cuts to him opening his eyes surrounded by several maids. He notices that they look like giants and he tries to defend himself with a fireball. He notices that his hands are tiny, and the fireball he casts blows a hole through the castle wall. Afterwards we see a kid spreading around the news about the birth of the 7th prince of Saloon Kingdom named Lloyd, and the citizens are happy to hear about this, and meanwhile the maids are surprised to see the prince's magic. 10 years then pass by, and we see the maids in the castle looking for Prince Lloyd. They can't find him, and we see Lloyd trying to sneak away somewhere, but he comes across a few court officials. He asks them to not tell the maids that they saw him, and one of the officials asks him if he wants to go on a hunt with them, but the prince just sneaks out of there. The other official then tells him that he is the 7th prince, and being 7th in line there is almost no chance of him inheriting the throne, so they shouldn't waste their time buttering him up. The official mentions that this is not true, as Lloyd could speak shortly after his birth, and he read spell books instead of picture books. He refused to drink breast milk like any gentleman would, and he thinks that Prince Lloyd is the reincarnation of William Bordeaux. The other official thinks that this is ridiculous, and Lloyd then mentions that he is someone who has reincarnated. He was just a commoner in his past life, and he doesn't know why his memories are intact, but he doesn't care about his status or glory. He states that he is following the same philosophy that he did in his past life, and he enters the library. He thinks that all he wants is to find out how much awesome magic he can discover in this palace, and he thinks that the library here puts the collection of Saloon Magic Academy to shame. He tries to read a book, but one of the maids named Silpha manages to find him, and the two of them train with the sword. Lloyd mentions that he doubts that a 7th prince who has no shot at the throne needs sword training, but Silpha tells him that as a member of the royal family, he needs to be familiar with handling a sword. She mentions that it's been 3 years since she has been put in charge of Lloyd's education, and in this time it has become her purpose in life. Lloyd then thinks that Silpha is going to train him until evening if he doesn't show her that he has improved, and he fights her seriously. The two of them cross swords, and Lloyd thinks that Silpha always holds back while fighting him. He mentions that right now he is using control-type magic to trace all of her movements, and this is cheating, but he just wants to go ahead and read books. He continues fighting, and he thinks that he is still no match for her, as there is gaps in his arm strength, stamina, and height, and even if he manages to copy her techniques those things always put him at a disadvantage and he loses. He thinks that in today's training he is going to cheat enough to make up for all that, and he uses his magic to increase the length of his sword, and he uses physical enhancement on himself. He also uses levitation magic, and he continues his fight with Silpha. We see that the both of them seem to be on equal footing now, and Lloyd puts up a great fight against her. He tries to land the finishing blow on her, but Silpha blocks his attack, and she wonders if Lloyd is cheating. She then takes him down, and we see that she has found out that Lloyd was making up for his height difference by using levitation magic, and he also extended the reach of his sword. She is happy to see how talented Lloyd is, and she jumps in joy to find out that he can use 2 spells at once, as even the court magicians find this feat difficult. Lloyd is relieved that she didn't find out about the physical enhancement and control magic, and he thinks that he was using 4 spells at once, but he won't tell Silpha about this. The scene then cuts to Lloyd in the bath with the other maids, and he tells them that he can bathe on his own. Silpha states that she knows that Lloyd will just be buried in a pile of books if she leaves him be, and Lloyd wonders why this is happening to him. Some of the maids then tell him that the forbidden library demon is going to gobble him up if he doesn't listen to them like a good boy, and Lloyd wonders what's the forbidden library demon. The maids tell him that long ago Saloon was nearly destroyed, and only after the sacrifice of countless mages, the demon was sealed in a book, and its name is Grimoire. Sylpha mentions that this book is supposed to be sealed in the castle's underground forbidden library, and she states that this must only be a fairy tale. She mentions that a demon who has been sealed away can't do anything, and Lloyd is not going to be afraid of such a thing. They then notice Lloyd quivering, and they think that this is cute. One of the maids then asks Lloyd to sleep with him tonight if he is afraid, and all the maids start to fight over whom Lloyd is going to sleep with. During all this, Lloyd sneaks away, and we see that he was quivering with excitement, not fear. At night, Lloyd sneaks out of his room, and he uses concealment magic to hide himself. He heads to the forbidden library, and one of the guards guarding the gate to the library yawns, and the other asks him to be on his toes, as on top of a powerful demon being in here, there is also magic in this library that can shake the entire kingdom. Lloyd then enters the library without being noticed, and meanwhile the other guard mentions that no one will be able to enter the library even if they get past them, as the gate inside is sealed by the sealing spells of the 10 most powerful mages. Lloyd manages to break the seal easily, and he notices a large collection of books inside. He thinks that he had no idea that there was a place like this in the palace, and he tries to read as many books as he can. Lloyd thinks that he will have to replace the barrier after he finishes checking out all the books, and a demon then comes out of one of the books. He is impressed that Lloyd managed to break the seal and enter here, and Lloyd wonders who he is. The demon introduces himself as Grimoire, and Lloyd also introduces himself. Grimoire then asks Lloyd to unseal him, and he mentions that this is going to happen eventually as his seal has degraded over time. He states that in exchange he is going to give Lloyd as much gold as he wants, and Lloyd notices that the gold is just dust transformed into gold with creation magic, and he mentions that his creation magic is not that good. He states that there is nothing to worry about as he is going to replace his seal, and he mentions that his study of magic is based out of this kingdom, and he can't let a demon threaten it. Grimoire mentions that the mage who sealed him lived ages ago, and he has no beef with the humans of now, but Lloyd doesn't believe him. Grimoire then states that he will teach Lloyd ancient magic if he frees him, and this piques his interest. Lloyd wonders if Grimoire is really going to teach him, and Grimoire states that he is. He mentions that he can tell that Lloyd has plenty of magic talent, and Lloyd then unseals Grimoire. He asks him to teach him ancient magic, and Grimoire then attacks him with an ancient spell called Arctis Obscura. He thinks that this should have killed Lloyd, and he wonders what he should do next, but he notices that Lloyd is totally fine, as he erected a barrier around himself. Lloyd mentions that this was a great spell, and he asks Grimoire to show him more of it. Grimoire attacks him with more of the same spell, but none of them manage to penetrate the barrier, and Lloyd calmly analyzes his spell. He thinks that it's fascinating, and he wants to feel what's being hit with this spell is like. He pokes his finger out of the barrier to feel the spell, and while the spell damages him, he thinks that this is painful, but also beautiful. He licks his blood, and he asks Grimoire what other spells he has. Grimoire then grows another mouth, and he starts to cast 2 spells at once. He merges both of them, and he casts a more powerful Arctis Obscura spell. Lloyd's barrier manages to defend against this as well, and he thinks that double casting is fascinating, but only a demon with 2 mouths can use it. Grimoire is surprised that even this spell wasn't enough to break the barrier, and Lloyd mentions that this spell must have been pretty fun to learn. Grimoire then tries to flee thinking that this kid is crazy, but he crashes into a barrier. He wonders how many barriers Lloyd has conjured up, and Lloyd mentions that the castle is right above them, so he can't let any mishaps like the last time happen. Grimoire then tries to attack Lloyd again, but Lloyd mentions that he wants to see some defensive magic next, and he attacks Grimoire with a powerful fire spell. This badly injures Grimoire, and Lloyd wonders why he didn't defend himself. Afterwards, Lloyd fixes the room, and Grimoire praises Lloyd for a job well done, and he calls Lloyd his master. Lloyd mentions that Grimoire is the amazing one, as demons can't be killed with magic. Grimoire states that magic can still hurt him, and Lloyd mentions that he is curious to see how much of a beating Grimoire can take. Grimoire gets scared to hear this, and he pledges himself to Lloyd. He asks him to let him serve as his familiar, and Lloyd agrees, but he states that Grimoire is going to stand out too much like this. Grimoire then transforms into a smaller and cuter form, and he thinks that he is going to use his cuteness to get close to Lloyd, and get the drop on him. Lloyd asks him to hop into his pocket, and Grimoire thinks that if he is that close, he will be able to control Lloyd's mind and take over his body, But as soon as he gets closer to Lloyd, he notices that his mana is really dense, and he won't be able to lift a single finger against him. Grimoire gets scared to see this, and he mentions that Lloyd can call him Grim from now on. He thinks that he is better off being obedient for now, and Lloyd states that he is going to read all he wants now. The scene then cuts to the second Prince Albert visiting Lloyd in the library, and Grim hides from Albert. Afterwards, Albert and Lloyd go to the shooting range, and Albert uses his magic to shoot the targets, and he hits a bullseye, and the ministers with him praise him for this. Grim notices his talents, and Lloyd mentions that his brother is smart and physically capable, and people view him as the potential next king. He also has the authority to access all kinds of facilities throughout the castle, and sometimes he invites him to join him. He states that this is one of the rare chances he is allowed to use magic in the castle, and Arthur then tells Lloyd that it's his turn. Lloyd goes to shoot some targets, and he thinks that he has no interest in the throne, so he tries to not make any waves. He just wants to study magic without any distractions, and he thinks that he is going to make the fireball curve, so that it only grazes the targets. Grim states that this is a lot harder than hitting the targets, and Lloyd uses his magic, and he manages to graze all of the targets the same way. The ministers also praise Lloyd, but they think that he is nowhere close to Albert's level, as he can only graze the targets. Grim states that all of them are fools, as they don't realize that Lloyd grazed all the targets the same way, and this is crazy. Lloyd then mentions that adding rotation to the fireballs is great, as it makes their trajectory more stable, and Grim thinks that Lloyd really is an absolute nut for magic. Albert then tells Lloyd that he is going to take a break, and he tells him to play around here if he wants. He leaves, and Lloyd is happy to have an empty shooting gallery all to himself. He states that there is so much he wants to do, and he mentions that he is going to try Grim's double incantation trick. Grim states that this is an exclusive trick for demons, as only they can have two mouths at once, and Lloyd then absorbs Grim. He manages to form Grim's mouth in his hand, and Grim states that no one but Lloyd would have thought of assimilating with a demon to try double casting. Lloyd then asks Grim if he can cast the spell called Perlance Incinus, and Grim mentions that a little advanced magic is a piece of cake for him. The two of them then try casting together, and Grim freaks out mid-cast. Lloyd wonders what's wrong, and Grim states that he is the one who should be asking questions. He wonders what Lloyd just tried to do, and Lloyd states that it was just a spell stack. It is then explained that spell stacking is a way of abbreviating incantations by mixing the incantations for multiple spells. Using this, they can reduce the amount of time required to cast a spell, and Lloyd states that following this methodology he was trying 100 different incantations just now. Grim freaks out hearing this, and he mentions that a single stack is only supposed to have 2 to 3 spells at once. Lloyd then tries something else, and he notices that he can speak with Grim's mouth as well. He finds out that he can use both the mouths at once, and he tries to recite 2 advanced incantations at once. He casts an advanced fire and water type spell, and Grim can't believe that Lloyd is trying to merge 2 different kinds of spells. Lloyd is ecstatic thinking about casting a double incantation, and he thinks that maybe it's not safe to point this spell at anything. He then fires the spell in the sky, and the scene cuts to Albert drinking tea while talking to some ministers. The ministers ask him why he shows so much favor to the 7th prince, as he is just a child with some talent for magic, and Albert tells them that they don't have any eye for talent. He explains that Lloyd managed to graze all of his targets the same way, and he might have done it intentionally. He is a prodigy who might go to become a grand sage one day, and he is going to be a great asset for him when that happens. The ministers think that it's only natural for Arthur to obtain the services of a grand sage, and Arthur mentions that he just wants to get along with his little brother. He thinks that Lloyd might have nailed all of the targets by now, and one of the ministers notice that it's dark outside. We see that instead of the targets, Lloyd has destroyed the shooting range, and his magic has opened a hole through the sky, and night is shining through the hole. Lloyd is surprised to see this, and he gets panicked wondering how to fix this quick, but the hole closes on its own after some time. The next day, Grim notices that Lloyd's stunt from yesterday has made it to the newspapers, and Lloyd checks out the news about an adventuring party clearing a dungeon. He finds out that the party brought back a lot of mystically empowered items, and he thinks that they should also explore a dungeon. He tries to leave, but Grim stops him, as everyone is going to freak out at his disappearance. Lloyd states that he can take care of that, and he uses an acorn to make a double of himself using a plant-type spell. Grim notices that the double is totally identical to Lloyd, and Lloyd explains that the resin mimics the bones and skin, and the roots acts as a model of the circulatory system. He shows Grimm that it can even perform basic actions, but this is not going to be enough to fool Silpha. He states that just the other day she noticed that he has grown by 0.07 millimeters, and a simple puppet like this won't be able to fool her, and this is why he has a plan. The scene then cuts to him flying out of the castle, and he talks to Grimm using his hand. He asks him how things are on his end, and Grimm mentions that he is standing in for Lloyd just fine. We then find out that Lloyd has put Grimm's mind in the puppet, and he has absorbed Grimm's body into himself, and this is how Grimm is able to control his body now. Lloyd asks Grimm to keep pretending to be him, and Grimm thinks that this puppet is amazing, and now that Lloyd is not here, he can do anything he wants. Lloyd then tells Grimm that he is glad to have a familiar like him, and this touches his heart, and he tells Lloyd to come back soon. Afterwards Lloyd wonders where he can find a dungeon, and he notices a girl running away from some orcs. She beats up the orcs one by one, and she manages to defeat them all. Lloyd notices that she is using martial arts, and he thinks that her breathing technique is remarkable. He explains that in foreign countries people channel an energy called chi through their bodies by breathing, and he has read that it allows for incredible techniques. The girl then notices Lloyd watching her, and she asks him to come out. Lloyd tries to do so, but Grimm tells him that he can't, as she will figure out that he is the seventh prince. Lloyd thinks that Grimm is right, and the girl then states that since Lloyd is not showing himself, he must be an enemy. She runs towards him, and Lloyd wonders what he should do. She then comes across Lloyd, and we see that he has changed his appearance, and he introduces himself as Robert, a rookie adventurer. We find out that Lloyd has used an illusion spell to combine his and his brother's appearance to create an original form, and the girl introduces herself as Tao. She thinks that Robert is hot, and she explains that she has spent 18 years of her life devoted to training, and she left the dojo hoping to meet someone, but all the guys she met ended up chasing after the dainty priestess-type girls. She thinks that she is going to make this hottie her boyfriend, and Robert asks her if the two of them can clear a dungeon together. Tao quickly agrees to this, and they head to a dungeon. In the dungeon Tao defeats a number of enemies, and she asks Robert if he has fallen for her strength, but she finds out that Robert is collecting glowing stones instead of looking at her. They then go ahead, and Robert asks Tao if she is adventuring on her own. Tao states that she hasn't found any decent comrades, and the two of them take a break. Robert asks Tao if she used chi while fighting the monsters, and she is surprised that Robert knows about chi. Robert mentions that it's similar to mana, and he states that breathing is supposed to be important while using chi. Tao is impressed that Robert noticed, and she mentions that chi training begins and ends with breathing. She explains that circulating their breathing gives them explosive power beyond normal reach, and being able to feel the chi in their body takes a lot of practice. She then notices that Robert is practicing chi breathing, and his lungs suddenly start to hurt. Tao can't believe this, and Robert mentions that he just tried to copy what Tao did while fighting. She is surprised that Robert did this by just watching, and she asks him to not keep doing this, as he is not used to this, and this will make his lungs feel like they are on fire. Robert doesn't listen to her, and he tries once more. He can feel a different kind of energy in his body, and he thinks that he can use this power to advance his magic even further. Tao then tells him that she can teach him more about chi if he is interested, and Robert thanks Tao for this. Tao then tells Robert to keep up his chi breathing until they leave the dungeon, and the scene cuts to Grimm in the castle. He thinks that Lloyd is a weirdo, as he has such a good life in this castle, but he doesn't care about any of it. Silpha then comes there, and Grimm is surprised to see her here. The scene then cuts to Tao defeating the boss of the dungeon with a chi blast, and she mentions that now they can open the treasure chest. She states that since this is an undeveloped dungeon, the treasure isn't going to be that great, and Robert finds the mechanism of the treasure chest impressive as it only opens once the boss had been defeated. Tao then notices that Robert has gotten used to his chi breathing, and she thinks that she might have found a great guy, and even her obnoxious grandpa might approve of him as her fiancé. Robert then states that they should open the chest, and as soon as Tao opens it something attacks her, but Robert saves her. A lich then comes out of the chest, and Robert wonders if this is a new boss. He then asks Tao what kind of creature a lich is, and Tao mentions that it's nothing to worry about, and she tells Robert to leave the dungeon first. Robert states that he wants to watch her fight, but Tao uses one of her chi techniques to send him flying. She thinks that this might break a few of his bones, but it's better than being killed by this lich. The lich then attacks her, but she dodges, and she wonders why such a low-level dungeon has a monster like a lich. Even A-ranked adventurers are no match for this thing, and she thinks that she will buy time for Robert to make his escape. We then see Robert flying through the air, and he calmly thinks that there are things about chi and dungeons that he needs to know. He creates a barrier around himself, and he manages to stop his flight. He wonders if he should go back inside when he doesn't even know why Tao sent him away, and he asks Grim what he thinks. He notices that Grim is looking pale, and Grim tells him to return to the castle right away in a weak voice, and he asks him to save her. Afterwards we see Tao fighting the lich, and she thinks that she is going to die here. She hopes that Robert has gotten away by now, and she tries to sneak away herself, but the lich states that she seems to be using chi techniques. He mentions that he once ate someone with similar abilities, and it was nothing but a weak form of magic. He explains that he always eats the souls of the adventurers who come to this dungeon, and he gains their wisdom and skills. He mentions that she is not even worth eating, but the man who was with her earlier was more capable, as he managed to dodge his attack. Tao then states that both the lich and Robert may chase after knowledge, but they are nothing alike, as Robert can even see a pebble on the road as interesting. She mentions that people in this continent treat chi as some backwater technique, and it made her happy when Robert said that he was impressed. The lich states that he doesn't care about that, and Tao then attacks him, but he protects himself with a barrier. Tao keeps attacking him, and she mentions that she is not going to go down so easily. She states that she has been practicing chi techniques ever since she was little, and she doesn't let up on the attacks. After repeated attacks she manages to blast a hole through the barrier with a chi blast, but the lich dodges the attack. Tao then thinks that she can't even move a muscle now, and the lich tells her that the full brunt of her chi arts is not even comparable to a single finger's worth of his magic. He then attacks her with a spell, but Robert saves her using his barrier. He tells Tao that he will take over this fight for her, but he will have to end it quickly as he is in a hurry. The lich and Robert then both cast their magic, and Robert manages to get behind the lich. The lich realizes that Robert just used the air-class spell called Full Sprint, and he can't believe that Robert did this without an incantation. Tao notices that Robert also used chi breathing just now, and the lich attacks him with a spell, but Robert protects himself using his barrier. The lich keeps attacking him, and Robert wonders how to combine chi and mana. Meanwhile the lich wonders how his barrier is so strong, and Robert gets an idea. He takes in deep breaths to accelerate his full sprint spell, and he keeps on practicing his chi technique while the lich attacks him. He notices that the barrier is stopping him from getting more air, and he dispels the barrier. The lich thinks that his attacks shattered the barrier, and he tries to attack Robert, but Robert manages to dodge all of his attacks while using his chi breathing. He tries to mix together mana and chi, and he then counters the lich's attacks with a technique he just made. He thinks that this is too weak, and he tries to perfect this technique while fighting the lich. He attacks lich with the discs of mana and chi he creates, but the lich manages to block all of them. Robert keeps on attacking him without letting up, and he improves his technique every time he uses it. The lich wonders how Robert is firing magic without incantations, and he thinks that these must be chi techniques. He wonders how simple chi techniques can match his sorcery, and we see that Robert has now perfected his technique. He uses it on the lich, and this splits both him and the dungeon in half. Afterwards they check the treasure chest, and they only get an old knife as a treasure. Tao thinks that this was a waste of time, and Robert mentions that this knife has an enchantment on it, and since Tao doesn't want it, he takes it. The treasure chest in the dungeon then starts to go under, and Robert wonders what's happening. Tao explains that the dungeon falls apart once the treasure has been taken, and Robert thinks that the treasure chest must be the core of a dungeon. He tries to get the treasure chest, and he explains that the core lives in the ground until someone drops a magic item. The core then absorbs the item and grows a dungeon around it, and it also takes in the gear of adventurers who fail to clear it to expand itself. When it's about to be cleared, it offers one of the things it has assimilated as treasure, and meanwhile Tao thinks that they should get out of here soon. Robert then manages to get the chest, and the two of them get out. Tao then asks Robert why he used chi techniques to fight the lich instead of magic, and she wonders if he did it because the lich was mocking her. Robert states that he just thought that it would be fun, and he tells her that he needs to hurry back home. He starts flying, and Tao tells him that the thing he fired in the end was a technique called Chi Blade, and she thinks that even she can't use it. She mentions that she is going to train harder to become an even more fascinating girl, and Robert states that this sounds good, and he leaves for the castle. Tao then thinks that she is going to become the kind of girl who can catch Robert's attention, and she wonders how she is going to find him. The scene then cuts to Lloyd returning home, and he notices that Grimm is all beat up. Grimm explains that this happened because he had a training session with Silpha, and she was going harder than usual because she thought that Lloyd has gotten weaker. Grimm mentions that he didn't stand a chance against her, and Lloyd comforts him. Afterwards, Grimm finds out that Lloyd only got a crappy knife for all the trouble he went through, and Lloyd apologizes for making him go through that, and he mentions that this knife is a treasure. He then dips the knife in hot water, and he scratches it gently. He notices that the knife has been treated with mana essence, and he explains that this is a catalyst for enchantment magic, and he finds out that the knife has been enchanted with the boost power. Grimm wonders if this means that Lloyd can study enchantments now, and Lloyd states that it's not that simple. He then puts all the mana essence in a liquid, and he stirs the container. He mentions that mana essence is hard to come by, and enchantment spells are difficult to do. If it fails, both the essence and weapon are wasted, and this is why he is going to analyze this essence and make some himself. He then uses a purification spell on the liquid, and he states that this spell is generally used to purify water, but if they keep increasing the purity, they can separate all the elements. Lloyd then notices that the mana essence is made up of oil, hematite, and silver, and he explains that hematite is made by powdering a monster core. Grimm mentions that monster cores are rare, and Lloyd tells him that they can just use the core of the dungeon, and they think that now they just need some oil and silver. Afterwards, Lloyd asks his father for some silver coins, and his father gives him a bag full of it. He then leaves, and the king thinks that Lloyd is so modest for asking for silver coins instead of gold, and he wonders what he is going to spend this on. We then see Lloyd and Grimm melting the silver coins, and the scene cuts to Lloyd fighting Silpha. He uses his full sprint spell to get behind her, and he casts a earth spell to make her lose her footing. He then tries to land a blow on her, but she still manages to defeat him. Afterwards, Silpha gives him some oil, and Lloyd wonders if she is sure about this, as the deal was for him to land a hit on her to get the oil. Silpha states that it's fine, and she mentions that she was worried about him after seeing his poor performance yesterday, but she is glad that he was only having a bad day and nothing else. She then thinks that since Lloyd has such great skills with magic and sword at the age of 10, he might become a knight commander when he grows up, or he might even become a sword master. Lloyd then leaves, and he mixes all the 3 ingredients he has gathered. Afterwards, he asks Albert for a supply of weapons to test enchantment magic on, and Albert states that Lloyd must really love magic to ask for this. Lloyd mentions that he does, and he hopes that Albert can provide him some weapons, as he has a lot of royal guards serving him. Albert then asks his knights if they want his brother to strengthen their weapons, and the knights give up all of their swords. They are not happy about giving up weapons that they bought with their hard-earned money, and they think that enchantments rarely are a success, and they can't expect a 10-year-old to enchant their weapons. They think that they had no choice as the second prince practically ordered them to do this, and none of them believe that Lloyd can enchant their weapons, and this makes Grimm determined to prove them wrong. Afterwards, Lloyd starts enchanting the weapons, and he writes a bunch of incantations on them. Grimm notices that he is filling all the space he can find on the weapon with enchantments, and he has applied more than 3 layers of boost enchantments. The sword then breaks as it can't handle so many enchantments, and Lloyd starts to enchant the next sword. After a number of unsuccessful attempts, he manages to enchant some of the weapons, and by the next morning he finishes enchanting all of the weapons. He then tells Albert that he managed to enchant 50 weapons out of the 120 he gave him, and he apologizes for wasting 70 of them. Lloyd then thinks that he actually managed to enchant 80 of them, but he tried to add more spells on them, and they broke. Albert then looks at the weapons, and he thinks that even a first-rate enchanter has a success rate of 10%. He realizes that Lloyd might be more talented than he thought, and meanwhile the knights wonder if their weapons have really been enchanted. They think that there is no way a child can do that, and Lloyd must have simply returned the weapons after failing repeatedly. One of them then tries to put his sword in his sheath, but the sword slices the sheath in half. Afterwards, Albert notices an especially powerful weapon among the enchanted swords, and Lloyd tells him that he was hoping to see his weapons used in battle. Albert mentions that their father just tasked him with a monster hunt, and he wonders if Lloyd wants to accompany him for this, and Lloyd is excited to hear this. The scene then cuts to Lloyd and Albert leaving to hunt monsters with some of Albert's knights, and we see that Silpha is also accompanying them. After a while, Lloyd notices that they are about to enter the forest, and once inside the forest, he wonders if the monster is in these woods. Silpha tells him that it's not, and she mentions that it's by the lake further down the road. She states that Lloyd seems to be looking forward to this, and he mentions that he is, as he doesn't get to leave the castle that often. He also wants to see how well his enchanted weapons work, and Albert then tells Silpha that she never lets Lloyd out of her sight. Silpha states that she is grateful that Albert allowed her to accompany him, and Albert mentions that he did this because she is Lloyd's teacher and his bodyguard, and he is sure that she would have missed him if he didn't. Silpha states that she is his teacher, so this should be obvious, and Albert wonders if she doesn't have any special feelings for Lloyd. Silpha then draws her sword to make Albert back off, and afterwards she senses some monsters in the area. They then get attacked by some kobolds, and Lloyd pretends to be scared. Grimm tells him that he knows that Lloyd sensed them coming, and Lloyd states that this is obvious. He mentions that one of the techniques that Tao taught him is spectral detection, and using chi breathing he is able to sense his surroundings at all times. It's one of the most basic techniques that she taught him, but it's quite handy. Grimm then thinks that Lloyd is becoming more terrifying by the day, and nowadays he always has his spectral detection, and a barrier at the ready. The knights then fight the kobolds, and they manage to slice through them easily thanks to Lloyd's enchanted weapons. Seeing this, Lloyd thinks that the enchantment was a success, and he notices that the weapons are so sharp that the knights themselves are scared of them, and it feels like this is their first time holding a sword. Albert tells everyone that this is the power of his brother, and he compliments Lloyd on a job well done. Silpha also mentions that Lloyd is wonderful, and we see that she has killed a bunch of kobolds, and Lloyd thinks that he never enchanted her weapon. One of the kobolds then tries to attack Lloyd, but Tao kills it, and she mentions that she came running as soon as she sensed a creature's presence. Lloyd wonders what Tao is doing here, and she notices that Lloyd is using chi breathing. She thinks that she just sensed Robert here, and she notices that Lloyd looks kind of like Robert. Silpha then kills a kobold behind Tao, and she thanks her for her assistance, but she asks her to not be so forward with Lloyd. Tao states that she wasn't forward with him, and she mentions that she didn't need her help as she could sense that kobold behind her. The two of them glare at each other, and Albert stops them from fighting. He invites Tao to accompany them to the lake, and the scene cuts to them camping around the lake at night. Albert then thanks Tao, and he introduces himself as the second prince of Saloon Kingdom. Tao is surprised that he is a prince, and she apologizes if she was rude earlier. She notices that he looks a lot like Robert, but he doesn't seem to be the hot guy she sensed earlier. Albert asks her if he looks like someone that Tao knows, and Tao mentions that Lloyd looked more familiar to her. We see that Lloyd is hiding from her, and he thinks that using spectral detection backfired on him. He didn't expect Tao's sensitivity to be so precise, and Grimm mentions that it's going to look suspicious if he stops doing it now. Lloyd decides to hide in his tent until the monster shows up, and when he goes inside, he notices Silpha changing. He asks her why she is changing in his tent, and she tells him that it's because she will be sleeping here tonight. She states that the soldiers outside are under the command of Prince Albert, and she is the only one dedicated to protect Lloyd. Lloyd tells her that he will be fine on his own, and he tries to leave, but Silpha grabs him, and while she pins him down, Tao comes inside the tent. Seeing this gives her the wrong idea, and Silpha attacks her. The two of them take things outside, and they start bickering with each other. Lloyd escapes from the mess, and he thinks that this place is going to be more suffocating than the castle. Albert tells Lloyd that he seems to be a lady killer, and Lloyd mentions that he is not. Albert tells him that Silpha has changed a lot since she started looking after him, and he mentions that she looks at Lloyd the way a woman looks at a man. He warns Lloyd to be careful as relationships with women can be scary at times, and while bickering, Silpha notices that the soldiers are ogling her body, and she kicks their ass, and after seeing this, Lloyd agrees with Albert. Tao then tells Silpha that she was originally here to fix up the old shrine at the top of that hill, and Silpha mentions that she should hurry and leave in this case, but Albert stops her. He mentions that it would be dangerous for her to go alone, and he states that her ability to sense threats is a real help to them. He asks her to stay with their group until morning, and the monster they are after then shows up there. Silpha guards Lloyd, and the knights fight the monster. The monster is called a bear wolf, and while Lloyd watches the battle, Grim thinks that the shrine up there seems familiar. Tao helps the knights in fighting the monster, and they think that it's tough. Albert then also joins the fight, and he uses his spellbound sword to amplify the spell he is casting. He then attacks the monster with his fire spell, and this fries the monster to a crisp. The knights praise Albert after seeing this, and Albert tells them that he is not this powerful normally, and this is all thanks to the enchantment that Lloyd applied to his sword. Lloyd is happy that the enchantment worked, and Grim then tells Lloyd that they should forget about that, as he just remembered that there is a demon sealed inside the shrine at the top of that hill. The monster that Albert defeated then stands up again, and some more monsters surround Lloyd's group. A demon then comes out of the injured bear wolf's mouth, and he introduces himself as Pazuzu. He mentions that he is going to make them pay for injuring his minion, and the group of monsters then attack them. Albert fights one of the monsters, but the monsters heal as soon as they are attacked. Tao thinks that this is really bad, and she states that these things are totally different from the bear wolves that she has encountered before. They notice that some of the bear wolves are of mongrel breeds, and they think that the demon must be behind all this. Lloyd then asks Grim if that Pazuzu guy is the demon that was sealed inside the shrine, and he wonders if Grim knows him as they are both demons. Grim states that he doesn't know him, but he can tell that Pazuzu is transmuting his mana in order to control the monsters, and he explains that he is using strings of mana to control the monsters like they are puppets. The transmuted mana is making the monsters think that Pazuzu is their leader, and this is why they are listening to him. He can also supply the monsters with mana through the strings, and this is helping the monsters to regenerate so quickly. He states that this won't end until Pazuzu goes down, and Lloyd then asks Grim to teach him transmutation. Grim mentions that this is not the time for that, as the others are fighting for their lives, and Lloyd tells him to do it anyways. Pazuzu then mentions that they are all really weak, and he states that some of them seem to have a little skill, but the rest of them are just hanging on because of their weapons. He states that they also have a pathetic baby to protect, and he wonders if that little baby just pissed his pants. He tells Silpha that it must be hard for her to work for someone like that, and this makes Silpha angry. She asks Lloyd if she can excuse herself, and Lloyd tells her to do what she wants. Pazuzu then tells Silpha that she should abandon that baby, and work for her, and Silpha states that he should shut up. She mentions that he smells so awful that her nose is about to fall off, and she tells him to not speak any further as his breath is polluting the air that Lloyd is breathing. She states that she is going to kill him for this offense, and Pazuzu wonders how she is going to do that, as the bear wolf that they defeated earlier is all healed up, and the others are also going to keep healing as long as he channels his mana into them. He states that she should not expect him to run out of mana, as demons have no shortage of it, and he tells her that trembling in fear is not going to help her. We find out that Silpha is not trembling, she just can't stand the smell of the demon, and the demon then attacks her, but Silpha manages to cut all 4 of the bear wolf's legs. She mentions that Pazuzu won't be able to keep up with her at this rate, and Pazuzu heals his bear wolf. Meanwhile, Albert and the others notice that the other bear wolves have stopped moving, and they are regenerating more slowly now. Albert thinks that this must be because the demon is focusing his power to heal his own bear wolf, and he states that they have a chance at victory when that bear wolf is wounded. We then see that Grim is still teaching Lloyd how to transmute his mana, and he mentions that this is delicate work. He states that Pazuzu must have a knack for this, as he has his mana tuned to a nature that suits the monsters, and this helps him maintain control over them. He states that this is not easy, and Lloyd should start with giving color to his mana, and then shaping it as he wants, but he notices that Lloyd has already mastered giving shape and color to his mana, and he has even added smell to it. Grim is surprised to see how fast Lloyd grasped the concept, and meanwhile Silpha is overpowering Pazuzu with ease. She then borrows an enchanted sword from one of the knights, and Pazuzu wonders how this maid is so powerful. He thinks that a mere babysitter should not have this kind of power, and he then tries to agitate her by trash talking about Lloyd. He goes around in circles around Silpha while he talks, and we see that Silpha is pissed beyond words after listening to all this. Pazuzu then attacks him, and he thinks that he managed to get her, but she slices the bear wolf from inside its mouth. She uses her dual blade arts to detach the demon from the bear wolf, and everyone is surprised to see Silpha's true power. She mentions that she is not going to let someone like him touch her master, and she backs Pazuzu into a corner. She states that he should make peace with his death, and meanwhile we see that Tao and Albert have defeated the rest of the bear wolves. Albert mentions that it's still not over, and he states that they will need to defeat the demon, but Pazuzu releases some kind of miasma, and this weakens Albert and his soldiers, and this also gets Silpha. Pazuzu then states that it took a lot of time for him to raise those minions, and they just slash them up like nothing, and he attacks Silpha. Albert tries to go rescue her, but he can't gather his strength, and he loses consciousness. Pazuzu then mentions that this is his miasma of domination, and those who inhale it fall into his clutches. We see that Silpha is barely hanging on, but she still insults Pazuzu's bad smell, and Pazuzu tries to attack her, but Tao saves her. Somehow, she can withstand this miasma, and Silpha asks her to mind her own business as she is totally fine. Tao mentions that she should quit lying, and she tells her to run if she can. Silpha then collapses, and Pazuzu is surprised that she was able to stand for this long even after taking his miasma. He wonders why his miasma is not affecting Tao, and Tao tries to attack him, but he catches her, and he notices that she is using some strange breathing technique. This must be letting her withstand the miasma that she has breathed in, and being captured disrupts her breathing. Pazuzu states that she could have run off if she is able to move, and he wonders if she didn't run away because she wants to be his minion. This makes Tao angry, and she hits Pazuzu, and she attacks him with a thunderquake pulse, telling him that she can never abandon a hottie in need. She then tries to steady her breathing, but a bear wolf attacks her from behind, and it tries to eat her. Tao barely hangs on, and Pazuzu asks him who is the hottie that she is talking about. He mentions that he can only see a heap of trash lying on the ground, and unlike them his darling minions rise up again and again. He states that this is true hottie behavior, and he releases his miasma at maximum potency. He tells her that she should serve him instead, and Tao states that she can feel that he is here. She mentions that he was close to her all this time, and his presence has been giving her courage. Pazuzu wonders whom she is talking about, and Tao states that the hottest guy of all is coming to kick his ass. The bear wolf then eats her, and Pazuzu thinks that it must be pitiful to be human, as they are a life form incapable of understanding his devilish charms. He mentions that it doesn't matter, but Silpha has to pay for what she did, and he thinks that he will make her into one of his minions. He mentions that it will take a while to bring her under his control, but her strength is enough to justify this. He states that he will make her serve as his servant until she dies, and Lloyd mentions that this must be how he got those bear wolves to obey him. Pazuzu states that it is, and he explains that he killed their parents, and used his miasma to replace them in the mind of the pups. Despite being the murderer of their parents, they started obeying him, and Lloyd tells him that he is really awful. Pazuzu is surprised to see that he is able to move inside of his miasma, and he wonders how he can do this. Lloyd states that he has no idea, and Pazuzu mentions that no one can just waltz around his miasma like it's nothing. He then notices that Lloyd also has a demon with him, and he asks Grimm why he is protecting a human. He mentions that he has never heard of a demon serving a human, and he wonders why Grimm looks like that. He states that Grimm is a shame on their kind, and Grimm mentions that he was going to give Pazuzu some helpful advice, as a fellow demon, but after seeing his attitude, he has changed his mind. He states that he just wants to see him in shambles now, and Pazuzu then uses his minions to attack them, but Lloyd thinks that he will use this chance to test his mana transmutation. He notices that he will have to put in a large chunk of mana in this, and he hopes that he can get the output right, as he always gets carried away at times like these. He forms a flowery field using his mana transmutation, and this gives the bear wolf a feeling of motherly love, and they all surrender themselves to Lloyd. Grimm tells him that they are all head over heels for him because of his mana, and Lloyd then tells the one that swallowed Tao to let her out. The bear wolf lets her out, and Lloyd covers her body. Pazuzu is surprised that Lloyd was able to convert all this mana into a field of flowers in an instant, and he thinks that this kid must be an awesome sorcerer. He tries to use his miasma to make the bear wolf snap out of this, but Grimm tells him that this is not going to work, as they have all remembered that he is the one who killed their parents. The bear wolves then attack him at once, and this makes him drop Silpha. Pazuzu then manages to stop their attack, and he takes them all down. He reminds them that he is the one who raised them after killing their parents, and he brutally hits them all. He then stops supplying the bear wolves with mana, and he shows Lloyd his full mana capacity. He asks him to be ready for what's coming next, and he mentions that no matter what spell he uses on him, it won't work. Lloyd then remembers that Grimm told him that demons can't be killed by magic, and Grimm states that it has never been done before. Lloyd wonders why they don't die, and he begins to release his mana as well. He wonders if they are just hard to kill, and he thinks about how much magic it will take to kill a demon. Seeing his immense mana, Pazuzu is lost for words, and Grim wonders if he can understand why his miasma never worked on Lloyd. He thinks that no matter what they do with their mana, it's not going to be enough to affect this kid, and Lloyd thinks that there are a lot of spells that he wants to try, and Pazuzu will be the perfect test subject. Pazuzu is horrified due to Lloyd's demonic mana capacity, and he wonders how this kid has such absurd levels of mana. Lloyd then tries to capture Pazuzu in a barrier, but he manages to dodge, and he thinks that he never saw Lloyd cast an incantation. He realizes that Lloyd is not trying to fight him, but he is aiming to capture him, and he flees while Lloyd makes several more attempts to capture him in a barrier. Pazuzu thinks that he will most likely die if Lloyd manages to capture him, and he runs for his life. Lloyd keeps casting barriers without any rest, and Grim asks him how many spells he can cast at once. Lloyd mentions that he can cast 20 spells at once, if they include the ones on standby, but if Grim helps him out, he will be able to cast even more. Grim then merges with Lloyd's hand, and he casts his barrier even faster than before to catch Pazuzu. Pazuzu still manages to dodge, and he goes underwater, but the barriers keep coming, and he keeps dodging. He wonders how Lloyd is casting so quickly, and he makes his way out of the water, and Lloyd manages to catch him with a spell called Dimensional Enclosure. Pazuzu tries to get out of this barrier, but no matter how much he tries, he can't get out. He wonders what Lloyd is going to do to him, and Lloyd states that there is no need for him to be afraid, as magic is not supposed to work on him. He reminds him that he killed the parents of those bear wolves, and since some of them don't even resemble wolves anymore, he might have been doing chimera experiments on them. He states that he has done plenty of bad things in his life, and he should be prepared for the consequences. Lloyd then uses his high-speed casting, and Pazuzu asks him to let him go, and he mentions that he is the demon who is supposed to rule this world someday. He states that they should talk things over, and he mentions that he will raise Lloyd's standing when he takes over the world, but Lloyd doesn't listen to him. He then states that he has never been hit by the magic of someone as powerful as him, so there is a chance that he might actually die, and Lloyd still continues casting. He casts fire, water, wind, and earth spells at the same time, and he hits Pazuzu with all of them at once. He thinks that at his current casting speed, he can cast 240 spells a minute, and he decides to keep this up for 30 minutes. After less than 5 minutes, Lloyd notices that Pazuzu is not responding, and he wonders if he is already dead. Grim then explains to Lloyd that sorcery does have some effect on them, and to them it's as unpleasant as lights and sounds are to humans, but this result must be because of the amount of magic that Lloyd used, and the stress it caused over time. Pazuzu then states that it took him 100 years to raise those monsters, and he was planning to use them to rule the world, but he wonders how he failed so easily. Albert and the soldiers then start to wake up, and Lloyd thinks that he will need an excuse for all this. He goes to them, and he tries to explain what happened while leaving him out of it, and Grim tells Pazuzu that this world doesn't want to follow those who go around griping about how hard things have been. They think that they are more likely to have a good time with someone who is enjoying themselves, and Lloyd likes to do what he enjoys, and the way he enjoys it. This is why people are always flocking to him, but Grim states that this is not why he is with him. He mentions that he is only searching for a chance to take his revenge, and Pazuzu is surprised that he lost because he was not having enough fun, and he states that he will entrust his ambition to Grim, and Grim eats his remains. This restores some of Grim's power, and he thinks that with this he can take his revenge, but he notices Lloyd having fun, and he puts his revenge aside for now. Lloyd then tells Albert and the others that a sorcerer named Robert saved them all, and they choose to believe him. The scene then cuts to the king commending Albert on taking out a demon on top of dealing with the monster that he was tasked with, but he states that he must question his judgment in going only with his royal guards. Albert apologizes for this, and the king asks him where are the adventurers who aided him with this. Albert states that Robert vanished before they regained consciousness, and we see that after everything was settled, Tao was happy that Robert came to save her from the demon, but she thought that this poncho belongs to Lloyd. Lloyd noticed this, and he told her that Robert is over there, and she went after him blindly. Back in the present, Albert states that Tao went after Robert before he was able to thank her, and the king mentions that he is interested in the strength of this sorcerer named Robert. Albert then tells the king that the person who contributed most to this hunt was Lloyd, and he states that they should consider him a part of the royal succession. They were only able to survive against the monsters with no casualties because of the enchantments that he placed on their weapons, and he believes that Lloyd's talents and diligence make him fit for the throne. The king tells him that this will only create another rival for him, and Albert mentions that he only wants the best person to rule the kingdom, and this is a choice which should be made for the good of the realm. He questions excluding Lloyd from the succession just because of his youth, but he states that he doesn't intend to be outdone by him. The king then asks Lloyd if he wants to join the struggle for the throne and stand beside his brothers, and Lloyd humbly declines. Afterwards we see Lloyd playing with one of the bear-wolves from before, and he explains that this bear-wolf followed them while they were on their way back, but the rest stayed in the woods. Lloyd pets the bear-wolf saying that he is really fluffy, and this makes Grim jealous. He then makes himself fluffy as well, and Lloyd pets him too. Silpha then comes there, and she mentions that this bear-wolf seems to have taken a liking to Lloyd, and Lloyd hides Grim in the bear-wolf's fur. He then tells Silpha that he has named this bear-wolf Shiro, and he wants to teach him a bunch of things, but he doesn't know what's the best way to teach him. Silpha tells him that monster tamers are able to control monsters using their mana, and Lloyd thinks that he should try it. Grim then thinks that it's not surprising that Lloyd turned down his shot at the throne, as he is a magic maniac, and meanwhile the king thinks that Lloyd is really modest. Albert tells him that this is not the case, and he mentions that kingship might be too minor a role for him, and the king states that he will look forward to Lloyd's future. The scene then cuts to Lloyd issuing some simple commands to Shiro, and he can execute them without any problems. Lloyd states that Shiro can learn simple commands easily, but he has trouble with complex commands. He is not sure how he can get him to understand these complex commands, and he states that he tried writing down a command spell into his mana to send it to Lloyd, but the command confuses him, and he starts acting like a goofball. Silpha wonders if there is someone knowledgeable about monsters whom Lloyd can talk to, and the two of them think of the same person. They state that they should head to Princess Elise's garden tower, but they are not sure if this is a good idea. Afterwards we see them at the garden tower, and Grim asks Lloyd who this Elise person is. Lloyd mentions that she is the 6th princess of Saloum named Elise de Saloum, and she is 3 years older than him. She is an animal lover, and she keeps reptiles, birds, and even monsters at her tower. Elise then jumps onto Lloyd after seeing him, and she smooches him. Eris, her maid, then comes running there, and she asks Elise why she has to jump and kiss Lloyd every time she sees him. Elise mentions that it's because Lloyd is cute, and she wonders if he is here regarding this bear wolf. Lloyd is impressed that she knew that this is a bear wolf at first sight, and Elise mentions that it's all her instincts, and she states that it might also have something to do with mana. Silpha tells Lloyd that they should get out of here, as Elise doesn't even understand the concept of mana, and she won't be able to explain how she can communicate with monsters. Lloyd asks her to wait a little longer, and he wonders if Elise can show them one of her monsters. Elise states that she has already called one of them, and Lloyd notices that it's standing right behind them. Elise then introduces the monster as Liru, the Lesser Fenrir, and Lloyd is surprised that this monster was able to slip past his presence detection. He wonders when did she even issue the command to approach while their backs were turned, and snatch Silpha's headband. He thinks that she would have given some complex orders without any indication of it, and he wants to know how she did it. He asks her to teach him, as he wants to be able to communicate with Shiro, and Elise states that this isn't going to be a simple task. Lloyd mentions that he doesn't mind this, and Elise tells him that the key to communicating with animals is love. She states that love can help them communicate with any monster they want, and Eris tells Lloyd that it's pointless to ask the princess about this, as she is a prodigy. The princess mentions that this is not the case, and anyone can learn how to do this. She states that they just have to feel it, and she makes a few small animals play some pranks with Silpha and Eris. After this, Silpha mentions that they should return at once, but Lloyd states that he never thought of things this way. Silpha wonders if Lloyd is showing interest in love, and she thinks that at this rate Lloyd might ask her to teach him about love. Lloyd then states that he was giving orders to Shiro, but his sister wasn't issuing commands to her animals, she was sharing her will with them. When her entire menagerie started moving at once, he noticed mana flowing directly from her head to the heads of the animals. She was able to connect with the animals subconsciously, which gave them a direct vision of what she wants them to do. Lloyd then uses this technique to give an order to Shiro, and Shiro circles around Lloyd 3 times, and he barks after jumping. Lloyd is happy that this worked out, and seeing this, Eris thinks that Lloyd is really gifted. She states that this technique is similar to what monster tamers use, and Silpha is disappointed that it's not what she imagined. Elise mentions that it's not complicated stuff like will and mana, it's because of love, and Lloyd tells her that love is also an important factor in this, as she gained this power because of the love she has for animals. He states that they also need a sense of empathy to share their mind with animals, or they won't listen to them. He mentions that love has a lot of depth to it, and all the girls there find this cute, and they hug Lloyd. Afterwards Lloyd leaves the garden tower, and he states that he has started to figure out how to connect with monsters. Silpha mentions that this is great, and she states that he should put this same motivation to his training as well. Lloyd is not happy about this, and Albert comes there, and he mentions that Lloyd will be coming with him today. Silpha doesn't like this idea, but Lloyd asks Albert why he is here. Albert states that he would like to introduce Lloyd to someone, and he introduces Lloyd to his older brother Dien, who is the fourth prince. Lloyd is surprised to see Dien here, and the scene cuts to them at a smithy in the palace. Dien tells Lloyd that he has heard that Lloyd enchanted Albert's spellbound sword, and Lloyd states that he did. Dien doesn't believe this, and he asks Lloyd to prove that he is not full of crap. Albert then explains to Lloyd that Dien is a blacksmith, and when he was 10, he traveled to Bartram, a neighboring nation known for its smithing, so he is interested in enchanting. Lloyd thinks that he remembers something like this, and he states that it's impressive how Dien was willing to study abroad even though he is a prince. Dien mentions that this isn't about him, and he asks Lloyd to hurry up and start enchanting. Lloyd starts enchanting, and Dien thinks that Lloyd must be lying as enchanting a spellbound sword is not easy. Not even the people in Bartram can manage this, but Lloyd manages to enchant the sword in a matter of minutes. Dien is surprised to see that the sword has an enchantment for reinforced strength, reinforced elasticity, self-cleaning and self-repair. He admits that Lloyd is a genius, and he states that he might be able to achieve his dream of creating the ultimate spellbound sword if Lloyd helps him out. He explains that normally enchanted weapons aren't that strong, but if they apply the enchantment on the steel before forging it, the result is much better than normally possible. This creates a super weapon which is only possible by an enchanter and a smith working together. Dien states that when he was a kid, he loved sorcery, but he didn't have the talent for it, so he diverted his focus to creating spellbound swords. He mentions that spellbound swords are amazing, and by using them he wants to make this country a place where everyone can use magic. Lloyd states that this is a wonderful idea, and he thinks that this won't help him in any way, but he is interested in the production process. He tells Dien that they should do this thing, and the two of them start their production process. They decide to make a sword that can shoot fire, and Lloyd mentions that he will enchant the sword with the fire spell called Perlinsinkiness. Dien states that this won't work, as the casting formula for that spell has 14 parts, and a spellbound sword can only hold a max of 5. Lloyd mentions that he will just compress the formula to 2 parts, and he readies the enchantment. He then tries to apply it to the steel, but the steel breaks. Lloyd thinks that the weight of the spell must be too much for it, and he decides to split the spell into 4 parts, but this also doesn't work. Silpha and Shiro then start helping him out with production as well, but no matter what they do, they can't get this to work. Lloyd is confused why this is not working, and Grimm notices something. He tells Lloyd that something is up with this mana essence, and Lloyd finds out that Dien bought this mana essence for cheap. He uses the Purify spell on the mana essence, and he notices that it barely has any hematite in it. They won't be able to enchant a spellbound sword using this cheap thing, and he asks Dien if he has any hematite with him. Dien states that he doesn't, and Lloyd thinks that he should sneak out to hunt monsters in a dungeon again. Silpha also suggests going to a dungeon, and scared that she might have found out about his excursion, Lloyd mentions that as a prince, he can't go to a dungeon. Silpha states that she has talked to the king about it after their encounter with the monsters the other day, and he said that it would be a good idea for Lloyd to broaden his horizons by seeing the world. The scene then cuts to the two of them at the Adventurers Guild, and Katerina the receptionist gives Lloyd a form for his registration. Silpha tells Lloyd that he should fill the form with his real name, and Katerina mentions that after filling the form Lloyd should place his hand on this crystal ball, so they can gauge his strength, and assign him his adventurer rank. Lloyd thinks that he used one of these in his past life, but if he touches it now, it might explode, and this would draw too much attention. He suppresses his mana even tighter than usual, and he touches the crystal, and his rank comes out to be E. Seeing this, the other adventurers laugh as even the weakest person has a rank of D, but Katarina mentions that this is actually remarkable, as Lloyd's magic rating is A, and it's comparable to an experienced sorcerer. Lloyd is surprised by this as he suppressed his mana to 1% its normal strength, and Katarina mentions that Prince Lloyd is the most promising adventurer since the Silver Blader. The other adventurers are not happy with Katarina comparing this kid to the famous Silver Blader who tore through countless dungeons like a demon, and became an A-ranked adventurer. Silpha ignores them, and she tells Katarina that they would like to accept some dungeon quests, but Katarina mentions that they need at least one B-rank adventurer in their party to raid a dungeon. Silpha states that she will re-register in this case, and the other adventurers tell her she should ditch the kid and have some fun with them, but Katarina informs them that Silpha here is the Silver Blader herself, and the adventurers freak out. Katarina then informs Silpha that re-registering will demote her to C rank, and Tao comes there. She mentions that she can help them out, but Silpha doesn't like the sound of this. She states that she thought that Tao left to find Robert, and Tao mentions that she did, but she couldn't find him even after searching countless dungeons, and instead she ended up getting promoted to a rank. She asks Lloyd to introduce her to Albert in return for helping them out, and Katarina suggests them a quest. Lloyd then states that he didn't know that Silpha was such an amazing adventurer, and Silpha mentions that she was an adventurer for a long time as a means for training, but there were deadly foes that even she failed to bring down. She explains that she is talking about the Assassin Guild, and afterwards the scene cuts to them in a dungeon, and they manage to clear it easily. The scene then cuts to Albert asking Jen how things are going, and Jen mentions that they can resume their work after Lloyd returns in a few days. Albert is disappointed that it will take a few days, and Jen asks him if there is going to be a war. Albert mentions that there are signs of it, and Jen tells him to hold on until they can mass-produce the spellbound swords. Albert states that he brought together the two of them so they can work like brothers again, and they don't need to worry about the fighting. He mentions that he is sure that they will be able to save a lot of lives by using these swords in the future, and he asks him to continue his research. Lloyd then comes there, and Jen states that this future might come sooner than they expect. They all then manage to craft a spellbound sword that can shoot fire, and when they test out the sword it destroys their shooting range, and this surprises Jen and Albert. They name this sword Delord, and Lloyd thinks that he will tone things down the next time. Afterwards we see Lloyd about to sleep and he thinks that making that spellbound sword, and mass-producing it was a lot of work. He noticed that Albert was also busy today, and he wonders if something big is about to happen. He then senses someone's presence in the courtyard, and he thinks that this presence feels weird. It's like there is a hole in space, and he is surprised that not even the perceptive Shiro can sense this. Lloyd then goes to the courtyard, and he comes across a girl there. She tries to flee, but she notices that Lloyd has covered this entire area in a barrier. Lloyd mentions that they should have a little chat, as she is trespassing, and the girl removes her cloak. She states that she didn't want to use this on a child, and Lloyd then smells some sweet flowers. He realizes that he is smelling poison, and he uses the Purify spell to neutralize it, but the girl tells him that this is not going to work, and the poison brings Lloyd to his knees. The girl mentions that there is nothing that can purify her poison, and Lloyd thinks that Purify can neutralize all known poisons, but since the spell is not working, this must be an unknown toxin. He notices that she is transmuting the nature of her poison with mana, and he explains that there are rare individuals who are born with a special type of mana. Out of them there are those who have threatening abilities, and they are known as the Blighted. The girl tells Lloyd that he is right, and she is a poison blighted. She mentions that she has been spreading poison since birth, and this is why people call her Ren, the poison moth. Ren then breaks Lloyd's barrier, and Lloyd thinks that she must have used her poison to weaken it. She tells Lloyd that he has only taken a bit of her poison, so he won't die, but he is going to suffer for 2 or 3 days, and she leaves. Lloyd then thinks that she is really good at erasing her presence, and Grim comes there. He asks Lloyd if he is alright, and Lloyd mentions that he is fine. He states that he is using the health class spell called Healing Breath, and it's healing him gradually. The damage from Ren's poison is not going to be enough to outpace it, and Grim wonders why Lloyd didn't go after Ren if he could move all along. Lloyd states that he is going to have her guide him to their hideout, and he mentions that he is pretty sure that Ren is a member of the Assassin's Guild. He states that Silpha told him about them, and she mentioned that it's a group composed of 6 members who have bounties on their heads. They are quite skilled at hiding their presence, and each of them has a special ability. He thinks that they all must have an innate nature of mana, and Lloyd then uses his magic to sense where Ren is going. Grim is impressed that Lloyd can sense her as she is undetectable, and Lloyd explains that the way she hides is like ripping a hole in space, and once they realize this, it's easy to track. He then goes after her with Grim, and afterwards Silpha and Shiro notice that Lloyd is not in the castle. We then see that the other members of the Assassin Guild are angry that Ren didn't kill Lloyd, and Ren states that her target was just a child. She mentions that she did confirm that they are mass-producing spellbound swords now, and this is probably a sign of war. Galilei asks her to stop acting like their leader Jade, and he reminds her that their leader is gone now. Ren states that this is not true, as Jade is going to come back, and Teria asks them to stop this, as they are being watched. Lloyd is surprised that she managed to find him out, and Galilei can't believe that the child Ren mentioned is the 7th prince. He states that he can't let him leave now that he knows about the Assassin's Guild, and Lloyd releases his barrier. Grim asks him why he did that, and he mentions that he is dealing with individuals with unique powers, and it will be a waste if he doesn't get to sample them. He then uses Tao's martial arts to fight, and Babylon engages him. He tries to attack Lloyd, but Lloyd manages to block all of his attacks, and he thinks that tracing Tao's movements were worth it, as her defenses are pretty incredible. He then notices that Babylon is really flexible, and Babylon uses his flexibility to land a hit on Lloyd. He explains that he is a warp-blighted, and he can twist his entire body around to fit through the tiniest of spaces. Lloyd thinks that this flexibility is way more than what they can manage using sorcery, and he states that his body is as unique as it gets. Crow then tells Lloyd to sink, and Lloyd gets stuck to the ground. Galilei explains that Crow is a curse-blighted, and he normally stays quiet to keep his power in check. Galilei then tries to attack the stuck Lloyd, but Lloyd uses enhancement magic to move. He gets on top of Galilei, and this makes him stick to him. Galilei explains that he can transmute the mana around his body into sticky fluids, and this makes him a web-blighted. Lloyd frees himself by taking off his clothes, and he thinks that Galilei's ability to turn his mana into webs is amazing, and Crow is most likely using cursed speech. Teria then attacks Lloyd, but he manages to block her attack, and she keeps attacking him, but Lloyd keeps dodging. Teria then attacks her own leg, and this injures Lloyd in the same place. She then explains that she is the pain-blighted, and she can share her damage with anyone she can see. Lloyd is excited to see this, and he wonders how this works. Teria then regroups with the others, and Babylon asks Ren to stay out of this, as her poison can also affect them. Lloyd then heals the wound on his leg, and this heals the wound that Teria has as well. The assassins surprisingly wonder how Lloyd managed to heal this fast, and he then uses a spell called Boost Strength to strengthen some clothes he has in his hands, and make them as strong as steel. He wonders if damage will get reflected back on him if he hits Teria, and he states that he is going to test this out. He then traces Silpha, and seeing his stance reminds Galilei of the Silver Blader. Lloyd then attacks Babylon, and Crow tries to save him by trying to blow Lloyd away, but Lloyd makes him use his cursed speech on Galilei and he lands on Teria. He then attacks Crow before he can say anything, and he takes him out. We then see that Teria and Galilei have stuck together, and when Galilei tries to free himself, he ends up ripping Teria's clothes. Lloyd then attacks Teria, and she tells him that he is going to get injured as well if he hurts her. Lloyd states that he has to experience this for himself, and he attacks Teria. He notices that the pain really does get reflected back, and Galilei manages to grab Lloyd. Lloyd frees himself, and he sends him flying using a chi technique. He then asks Ren to show him her poison again, and Ren thinks that this boy is crazy. He states that he is going to make the first move, if she isn't, and Galilei tells Lloyd that Ren can't control her poison mana, and once she starts spreading it, they will all be caught in it. Lloyd then thinks that they all don't have much control over their powers, and Galilei tells him if they were able to control their powers, they would have found another way of life instead of becoming a bunch of outlaws. He then tries to attack Lloyd, but Lloyd dodges, and he uses his magic on Galilei. Seeing Galilei in pain makes Ren mad, and she attacks Lloyd. She asks him what he did to Galilei, and Galilei asks her to stop, and he states that he is fine. He mentions that his mana is under his control, and Lloyd states that he has engraved a spell on Galilei's body to help him control his powers. He states that he just needed some external correction, and the mana that was spewing from him should now be circulating in his body. He mentions that he has never tried engraving a spell into someone's body, and he is glad that this worked. Galilei is happy to finally be rid of his curse, and Lloyd tells him that it's not exactly gone, as he can still use it if he wants to. He then does the same thing for the other assassins, and they are glad to see that their mana is not going out of control anymore. Crow is happy that he can speak normally now, and Babylon and Teria check out that their powers are not working on their own anymore, but they can still use them if they want to. Ren sits alone in a corner of the room, and Galilei tells her that it's great that she is not leaking out poison even though she is dressed lightly. He mentions that she can wear anything she wants now, and she states that she doesn't care about this. Babylon mentions that he can see that she is crying, and she tells them that she doesn't care if she can control her poison or wear anything she wants. Lloyd then states that the spell seems to be working nicely for everyone, and Teria gives Lloyd a change of clothes. She mentions that he is part of their gang now, and she states that they will have to get ready for his welcoming party. Ren reminds them that he has been producing weapons for war, and he snuck into this hideout, so he is their enemy, but Grimm tells her that he doesn't know about the war rumors, but coming here and making those spellbound swords was Lloyd's idea of having fun. Ren states that a normal prince doesn't create spellbound swords, and sneak into a den of assassins for fun, and she wonders how a goat can talk and fly. Lloyd asks the two of them to calm down, and he tells the others that he would like for them to show him their powers now that they can control them. Galilei states that it would be better if they explain themselves first, and he mentions that there is a lot that he needs to know. Lloyd is not interested in listening to their backstory, but Galilei still proceeds to share it. He mentions that first he needs to explain how they became the Assassin's Guild, and for that he needs to tell him about the Phantom Blighted, who has the power of teleportation. This piques Lloyd's interest, and Galilei states that the Phantom Blighted is named Jade, and his blight was the worst out of them all. He regularly found himself teleported to random locations against his will, and one day he showed them all a coin. He mentioned that this is going to be the symbol of the Assassin's Guild that they are going to create, and he explained that they are going to take shady jobs that the Adventurer Guild can't do. Every time they complete a job, they are going to leave a coin at the scene so people know that their existence is contributing to world peace. They will prove themselves to the Adventurer Guilds, and one day they will be able to live in the bright of day. He then got teleported to a random place, and Galilei states that this is how the Assassin's Guild started, and they began to take jobs that were too much for the Adventurers Guild. They finally had a sliver of hope for the future, and this is when they heard that the Lord of Lordest was preparing for war. He states that Jade also disappeared at this time, and a letter then appears there. Afterwards, Silpha enters the hideout of the Assassin's Guild to rescue Lloyd, but she notices that no one is here. She is surprised to see this as she can smell Lloyd in this place, and she notices a letter from Lloyd there. The scene then cuts to Albert reading the letter, and he finds out that Lloyd has gone to visit the Lord of Lordest with the Assassin's Guild, and he wonders why this has to happen now when things are touch and go with Lordest. He wonders why Lloyd is with the Assassin's Guild, and he assumes that Lordest and the Assassins must be working together, and they must have kidnapped Lloyd. Tien asks him to calm down, and he mentions that they can't start a war with Lordest based on a theory. Albert mentions that he is right, and he states that he will try to pursue a peaceful resolution until the end. Silpha then shows Albert the sticky clothes of Lloyd that she found at the Assassin's Guild hideout, and seeing this Albert wonders if those guys stripped Lloyd. Him and Silpha get angry to see that the clothes are sticky, and they angrily mention that they will be going to war. We then see that after getting the letter, the members of the Assassin Guild were surprised to see their guild's emblem on it. They wondered where this letter came from, and Galilei opened it swiftly. In the letter, Jade apologized for not contacting them for so long, and he has written that he has overthrown the rulers of Lordest who were preparing for war. He has become the Lord of Lordest now, and he is ready to receive them all at the Lord's manor, just like he promised. He has prepared a celebration to welcome them all at the Lord's manor, and he wants them to live together now. Everyone was happy to find out that Jade is alive, and he kept his promise to them, and back in the present Lloyd is flying everyone to Lordest as they were in a hurry to see Jade. He remembers that after reading the letter, Galilei thanked him for giving them the ability to control their curses, and he swore that he will pay him back. Ren then asked Lloyd to accompany them to Lordest, and she mentioned that this way he can also imprint the spell on Jade. Lloyd asked her if she knows where this letter came from, and Ren stated that it suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Lloyd mentioned that this means that it was accurately teleported to this location, and he explained that transspatial relocation like this is one of the most complex magic subjects. No one has figured out how to do this yet, and it's not the kind of thing that someone can figure out on accident. The others realized that this means that Jade can control his power, and Galilei wondered if he was lying about not being able to control it before. The others thought that there would be no point in him lying about this, and Galilei wondered if they can really trust what he said in his letter. Ren stated that there is no way Jade would want to trap them, and she mentioned that he must have learned to control his power. Lloyd stated that he wouldn't need to tag along if Jade can already control his power, and Ren was sad to hear this, but Lloyd mentioned that he will still accompany them, as teleportation has piqued his interest. He then noticed that Ren is also worried about Jade betraying them, and he told her that he would take care of it, if something is wrong. The others then told her that it's great that Lloyd agreed to come with them, and they noticed that Ren is making the face of a maiden in love. Back in the present, Lloyd makes a landing somewhere close to Lordest, and he notices that the others are wiped out after traveling at high speeds. Grimm tells Lloyd that they won't be able to fly if the others are like this, and Lloyd mentions that they should take a break, and walk the rest of the way. Ren states that she will go get something to eat from the woods, and she leaves. Babylon tells Lloyd that Ren is trying to show off for him, and he explains that when she was young, her poison ended up killing her parents, so she was living in the forest on her own. Teria mentions that back then Jade was the one who reached out to her, and we see that one day Jade returned to the guild with Ren. He told everyone that she is the poison blighted, and the others were not sure about keeping her here, as they could get affected by her poison, but Jade mentioned that this is all right. He then hugged Ren, and he thought that she smells like flowers, and he got poisoned. This made the others realize that wrapping her up won't be enough to keep the poison in check, and Ren tried to escape, but Jade mentioned that he is going to live here with her no matter what. He asked the others to help him, and they agreed. Jade then studied a bunch, and with the help of the others he managed to make some clothes for Ren to keep her poison in check. Ren was happy to see that these people cared so much about her, and this made her cry. Teria mentions that ever since then, Jade has been like a brother to Ren, and all of them are like one big family. Lloyd then notices Ren's cloak, and he thinks that he would like to meet this Jade. Grimm is surprised that Lloyd is interested in another human, and afterwards Ren cooks some food for everyone. The food doesn't look that appetizing, and Babylon asks Crow to use his cursed speech to make it taste good, but Ren stops Crow from doing this. She mentions that her stew is good as it is, and Teria reminds her that Lloyd is a prince, and this might not be up to his taste, but they notice that Lloyd is scarfing down the food. He states that it tastes good, and he thinks that since he was poor in his past life, he has eaten things which were way worse than this. Seeing this, the others also try the food, and they think that it's not as bad as it looks. Ren is happy to see everyone enjoy her cooking, and she hopes that Jade can also try it out one day. She then remembers that one time Jade told them that the Adventurers Guild was reconsidering the bounty on their heads, and the others were happy to hear that their bounties might be taken down. Jade reminded them that they are still considering it, but they were happy nonetheless. Jade then mentioned that he needs to confess something to them, and he told them that he is actually the third son of Lordest. He is a noble, and he approached them all to use them. He explained that Lordest is ruled over by his family who are downright diabolical, and they plan for war every day. He was desperate to find a way to stop the war, and this is why he sought out allies and power. This is why he approached them all and put together this team, and he apologizes to them, but none of them are surprised to hear this, except for Ren. The others already expected his backstory to be something like this, and Galilei mentioned that they have all walked different paths in life. He mentioned that most of their lives haven't been pleasant, and they are outlaws for a reason. They wondered if they are going to assassinate his siblings next, and Jade told them that he is going to settle this on his own. He mentioned that all of them are working hard to earn the right to live normal lives, but if the Adventurers Guild finds out that they carried out an assassination for a personal grudge, all of their hard work will go to waste. He stated that all of his life has felt like a curse, but the time he has spent with them all has been a blessing. He told them that he wants to forget everything and live with them, but he can't do this, as Lordest is going to start a war someday, and he can't sit back and ignore it. He stated that he also has a dream now, and he asked them to keep the Assassin Guild going, and not give up on their dream even if he doesn't return. He told them that he will have become the Lord of Lordest if he does return, and he will make that place a territory where the Blighted can live happily. After hearing about this, Grimm thinks that Jade is an awesome dude, and the scene cuts to them walking towards Lordest. We see that Lloyd has fallen asleep, and Galilei is carrying him. Galilei states that Lloyd seems like a normal child while he is sleeping, and Grimm tells them that Lloyd has a heavy-duty barrier protecting him even while he is sleeping. Ren then suggests that maybe they should let Lloyd rest for a bit while they check out the manor, and she mentions that she doesn't want to doubt Jade, but he might be getting manipulated by the Lordest. The others agree that this could be a possibility, and they think that they should leave Lloyd here for now. Ren asks Grimm to be with him, and Grimm states that there is no need for this as Lloyd is invincible even while he is sleeping. He is going to be pissed at him if something happens to them while he is sleeping, and he decides to go with the rest of them. The others then head to the manor, and they notice that everyone there is preparing for a party. They wonder if they are preparing to welcome them, and Grimm mentions that they should return with Lloyd in tow. The others agree, but one of the residents of the manor notices them, and he takes them inside. Everyone welcomes them to the manor, and they are served fine cuisine. Grimm tries to head back to get Lloyd, but Ren asks him to stay with her for a while longer, as she is nervous to see Jade again, and Grimm agrees. Jade then comes to meet them, and they are glad to see that he is all right. He changes his clothes to what he used to wear to make them feel comfortable around him, and they can't believe that he mastered his teleportation to such an extent. They think that they were worried for nothing, and Ren states that she has so much she wants to talk about that she doesn't know where to begin. Jade mentions that he doesn't care, and he uses cursed speech to make the members of the Assassin Guild bow down to him. Seeing this, they wonder how Jade can use Crow's cursed speech, and they notice that it's more powerful than the one that Crow uses. We then see that Jade and the others in his manor look like demons, and Ren asks him what's going on. Jade then tells the demons that he has a fine collection of blighted, and he asks them to choose whose body they want. He points at Ren saying that she is a poison blighted, and he states that he has forgotten her name. Grimm then uses his magic to attack Jade, and he tells the others to run while he informs Lloyd about this, but Jade sends him flying with an attack, and he lands beside Lloyd. This wakes up Lloyd, and he wonders where the others are. He notices the beat-up Grimm, and Grimm tells him that the others are in trouble. The demons at the manor are surprised that the blighted still haven't figured out what's going on, and some shadowy figures come out of their bodies. Seeing this, they understand what these guys are, and Galilei states that he has heard about psychic life forms that can infect a human and take control of them. Jade tells them that everyone here is a demon that he brought from the Netherworld, and he mentions that the Netherworld is beyond this continent, on the other side of the Great Ocean. He states that he came here for the body of Jade, and his teleportation ability, and he introduces himself as Gisarm, the catastrophe from the Netherworld. He mentions that Jade's body was worth the effort, as it can use teleportation, and he states that it took him months to wear down Jade's mind. He mentions that he had fun hollowing out his heart, and Ren angrily asks him what he did to Jade. Gisarm kicks her, and he states that Jade cared about his friends until the end. He begged him to not hurt them, and he resisted as long as he could, but as his grip tightened around his brain, he learned about all of them. He explains that the bodies of the blighted are a rare vessel for them, and Jade knew that he would go after his friends eventually. This is why he tried to kill himself, and he thought that he will be able to protect his friends this way, but he healed Jade every time he tried this. He mentions that it was fun seeing all of his grit and determination go to waste, and he states that they should have seen his face as it was priceless. Ren asks him to shut up, but Gisarm continues, and he states that he killed Jade's mind slowly, and then took over his body. The other demons then mention that they want the bodies of the blighted now, and some of them state that they want the girl's body, but Gisarm tells them that they should be careful with the girl, as she killed her own parents with her poison. The other blighted can't believe that Ren has to hear this in Jade's voice, and they think that this fact has caused her so much pain. They are angry, and they think that they want to kill Gisarm, but they are unable to move. Gisarm then notices a strange tattoo on Ren's arm, and he thinks that he doesn't have any memory of this. He notices that it's a spell of some kind, and he uses his cursed speech to ask Ren who imprinted this spell on her, but Ren bites her lips to stay quiet. She remembers all the happy memories of Jade, and Gisarm tells her to sell out her friend. Ren bites her tongue to stay quiet, but she has a hard time doing it, and Lloyd comes there. He protects the members of the Assassin's Guild with barriers, and he uses a powerful spell to tear a deep hole in the manor. Ren is glad to see that Lloyd is here, and Lloyd checks the injury in her mouth. He can't believe that she was trying to bite off her tongue, and he heals her. He states that Grimm has told him everything, and he asks the blighted to run away. He tells them that they can leave the rest to him, and Rin doesn't want to leave, but the others take her with them. Rin asks Galilei why they are running, and Galilei states that there are a bunch of demons over here, and Gisarm is even beyond their comprehension. They are just going to get in Lloyd's way if they stay here, and they run away. We then see that the other demons are worried about Gisarm, and one of them wonders if he is dead, but Gisarm teleports behind the demon, and he kills him. He then asks the other demons what they are doing, and he wonders if they have forgotten why they performed this ruse. He tells them that the assassins are experts when it comes to hiding, and if they are cautious enough, they might not be able to find them again. He orders them to chase them or he will kill them, and the demons go after the assassins. Lloyd mentions that he is not going to let them go, and he attacks all of them, but most of the demons survive his attack. Two demons then try to attack Lloyd from both sides, and on top of this Gisarm tells him to die using his cursed speech. The cursed speech manages to penetrate Lloyd's barrier, and Lloyd wonders if he should let this attack hit him or he should dodge. He has a hard time deciding, but Grimm tells him to dodge, and he dodges. The attack hits another demon, and he dies instantly. Lloyd then uses an analysis spell on the demon and he finds out that the cause of death was cardiac arrest. Lloyd mentions that he expected this, and Grimm tells him that he should run if he understands the severity of the situation. He explains to Lloyd that what Gisarm is doing doesn't require a spell, his mana is creating these effects directly. He mentions that it's similar to what Crow and Rin use, and it's also like Pazuzu's transmutation of mana. Lloyd states that he did notice the resemblance to Crow's cursed speech, but it's much more effective, and this makes Crow's version seem like child's play. Lloyd then explains that when facing a spell to conjure a sorted phenomenon, one can use a wall of mana to defend against its effects, but when an attack is directed exclusively with mana, this isn't the case. He states that a barrier is like a sieve, and the mana is like water. The barrier can block anything solid, but water can slip through the gaps. Grimm mentions that if they were dealing with someone like Pazuzu, they could have overwhelmed anything he whips up using their own mana. Lloyd states that in Gisarm's case the mana might be able to pierce his heart. Gisarm then notices that his demon lackeys still haven't caught the blighted, and he thinks that they are useless, as they can also be killed with sorcery. Grimm then tells Lloyd that demons are broken down by classes from 1st to 10th. Gisarm's lackeys are probably 10th class demons, and this is why magic works on them. He states that Pazuzu was an 8th class demon, and he is a 3rd class demon. Lloyd wonders if Gisarm is a 1st class demon, and Grimm states that he is even worse than this, he is netherworld royalty. He is like a demon lord, and regular demons are like peasants to them. Even 100 1st class demons wouldn't stand a chance, as they are bona fide living catastrophe on the scale of natural disasters. He mentions that even Lloyd is outmatched this time, and he tells him to run away, but Lloyd goes towards Gisarm. Gisarm asks him who he is, and Lloyd states that he is just a 7th prince. Gisarm remembers that there was something about him in Jade's memories, but he can't recall what it was. He feels like Jade wanted to meet him for some reason, and Lloyd states that he also would have liked to meet Jade, but now it's never going to happen. He asks Gisarm why he had to ruin this, and Gisarm states that he can ask Lloyd the same thing. He mentions that Lloyd has made a mess of his lair, and subordinates, and Lloyd states that Gisarm is after the guild, and these guys represent new frontiers in sorcery. The two of them then get angry at each other, and they tell one another to entertain them. Grimm still suggests that Lloyd should retreat, as their odds of winning aren't good, and Lloyd knows that he won't be able to easily defeat this enemy with sorcery like what he used on the ground. Grimm explains that attacking a demon with sorcery is like attacking fish with water, and they might be able to kill a fish with the right amount of pressure, but Gisarm is on a whole other level. High-pressure mana only feels like gentle waves to him, as he is the kind of freak that dwells in the absolute depths of sorcery. Gisarm then attacks Lloyd with little amount of mana, and his attack manages to break several layers of Lloyd's barrier. Grimm can't believe that Gisarm was able to pierce Lloyd's barrier so easily, and Gisarm mentions that Lloyd has a lot of protection. He states that he is going to break this barrier of his, and he creates a lot of arrows. He attacks Lloyd with all of them, and Lloyd dodges the attacks. Some of them still manage to get his barrier, but the barrier doesn't break completely. Gisarm then teleports on top of Lloyd's barrier, and he breaks it with a kick. Afterwards he attacks Lloyd with the remaining arrows, but Lloyd uses earth magic to block them. Seeing this, the Assassins Guild wonders what kind of fight they are even looking at, and the demons are also surprised by this face-off. The two groups then notice each other, and the demons remember that they are supposed to catch the assassins. They chase them, and Galilei tells Babylon to hurry up and open the gates of the fort. Meanwhile, we see that Grimm is scared out of his mind after the recent chain of attacks, and Gisarm is surprised that Lloyd is still unharmed. He thinks that he was only able to pressure him with his teleportation ability, and Lloyd tells him that this ability doesn't belong to him. Gisarm states that Jade didn't have what it takes to control this power, but he can. He mentions that humans seem to need an abstraction of spells in order to master these abilities, but for his kind who are born as masters of mana, this is just a simple matter. He states that they can understand it instinctively, just like how a bird knows how to fly without being taught. The Blighted are just pitiful people who are born with wings, but lack the wisdom to use them, and Jade's wings in particular were quite grand. He could hear them flapping in the distant netherworld, and he wonders why the Blighted resist them. He states that these guys are hated and feared by their own kind, so they should be offering up their bodies happily. He mentions that the Blighted are whole only when they become a vessel for a demon, and he states that he will demonstrate this perfection to the seventh prince. He wonders how the seventh prince is going to react to this, and he asks him if he is going to dodge, or run with his tail between his legs. Jade then pierces Lloyd with a teleported arrow, and he uses the same technique to lodge a few more arrows into Lloyd's body. He mentions that he is going to rename his power as the Shadow Wolf, and afterwards we see the demon lackeys trying to attack the Blighted, and Galilei stops them using his sticky thread magic. He mentions that his threads are going to harden in a few seconds, but the demons state that they can kill him within those few seconds, and they try to move. Crow then makes them fall using his cursed speech, and they think that it's great that Lloyd helped them control their powers. Babylon then opens the gates, and he mentions that they should escape quickly and close the gates. Ren and Crow then go to the other side, but before the others can leave, the demons manage to free themselves. They mention that they won't let them go far, and Teria uses her powers to hurt all the demons at once by cutting her ankle. Crow asks Teria what she is doing, and she tells them all to stay out of her sight. She mentions that she doesn't have enough control to avoid affecting her allies, and she asks them to leave to the forest and hide their presence. Ren wonders how Teria is going to escape with that injured leg, and the demons mention that she has a great ability, but it's nothing compared to the healing speed of demons, and they all heal. Teria then injures herself once more, and the demons state that this girl is crazy, as she is not even hesitating. Teria then tells the others that she is going to be fine, and she asks them to leave, but Ren doesn't agree to this. Galilei then closes the gate, and Teria asks him what he is doing. She mentions that she just asked him to stay out of his line of sight, and Galilei tells her that she can't do this on her own, so he will help her. He mentions that the demons can easily tear through the gate, and no one will be able to escape if that happens. Teria mentions that this is why she is staying behind, and Galilei tells her that he will give her company when she strikes the death blow. He asks her to take him with her, and the demons can't believe that Teria is going to kill herself, and take them down with her. Teria then tries to sever her head, and the demons try to stop her, but Galilei doesn't let the demons get close to her. Teria mentions that she is going to show them what they are capable of, and she states that she can't imagine how Jade must have felt when he was trying to commit suicide over and over again, and Ren tells her that she doesn't have to do this. She mentions that they can control their curses now, and they won't have bounties anymore. Jade might not come back, but they are close to living out in the open, and she yells at Teria to not kill herself. Meanwhile, Gisarm mentions that he thought that Lloyd would be able to entertain him a bit longer, and he states that the desperate efforts of the Blighted could have meant something if he did, but now he is going to teach them that they have the right to either live or die. He then notices Lloyd's corpse crumbling, and he finds out that it was a clone made of rocks. Lloyd then attacks Gisarm with a sword, but Gisarm dodges, and he thinks that they seem to be just getting started here. Lloyd states that this is not good at all, and Gisarm wonders if he is getting cold feet now, but Lloyd asks him if they can move this fight somewhere else. We then see that the army from Saloon is here, and they attack the demons. Silpha, Albert, and Jen are leading the charge, and Albert thinks that things have taken an unexpected turn. They wonder where Lloyd is, and Albert asks the Spellbound Sword unit to follow him in rescuing his brother. The story then goes to the past, and we see Silpha practicing her sword skills on some straw mats, and she manages to cut through them easily. She thinks that these straw mats have been compressed as much as possible with sorcery, but she can still easily cut them. The only problem is that her sword bends if she puts real strength into the strike. She thinks that at this rate, she won't be able to fight at full strength in battle, and she can always restrain her strength, but demons are even more durable than these straw mats. If she wants to defeat a demon, she has no choice but to use her full power. The story then returns to the present, and Ren is happy to see that help has arrived. Albert states that first they should deal with the people form the Assassin's Guild, and Jian tells him that the demon mob should be their first priority, but Silpha agrees with Albert, and she points her sword at the members of the Assassin's Guild. She tells them that their scheme has been laid bare, and she asks them where Lloyd is. She states that they are going to lose one of their heads for every minute of silence, or for lying to them. Galilei tells her that Lloyd is fighting in the Lord's castle, and Silpha wonders whom he is fighting, and why. Teria states that he is fighting for their sake, and Ren mentions that he is up against the boss of the demons. Babylon shuts her up, and he reminds her what they promised to Lloyd. Ren remembers that Lloyd told them to keep his powers and Grimm a secret if they run into anyone from the castle, and Galilei asked him why. Lloyd stated that the attention would be a pain, as he just wants to focus on his magic studies, and they agreed. Babylon tells Ren that they can't let the people from the castle find out about Lloyd's fight, as they will just get in his way, if they want to help. Ren wonders what they should say in this case, and Silpha states that it's time for one of them to die now. Ren then mentions that Lloyd is fighting a total loser right now, and the others agree with her. Silpha then states that she can start by killing Ren, but Albert stops her. Seeing this, Galilei and the others think that Albert is the kindest and most intellectual of all the princes, and he would surely listen to them. Albert mentions that he doesn't like starting things with a child, and he states that they should kill one of the adults first. The Assassin's Guild is surprised to hear this, and Albert shows them Lloyd's pants. He wonders why would Lloyd be fighting for the people who left this as a threat, and Galilei states that he just left those clothes to dry as they were covered in his fluids. Albert and Silpha get angrier after hearing this, and Ren then tells them that it's only natural for them to not believe them, but she is grateful to them for saving her family, and she doesn't mind being punished by them, but those demons have taken Jade, a member of her family, and this is why Lloyd is fighting. A demon then tries to attack them, but Liru kills the demon, and Alize states that they can believe this girl, as Liru would have gobbled her up if she sensed any bad intentions. Albert decides to put his faith in Liru's instincts, and he mentions that they will deal with the demons first. He tells Silpha to find Lloyd and retrieve him, but Ren tries to stop her, and she states that Lloyd doesn't need any help, as he is fighting a total loser. Silpha tells her to shut up, and the bridge gets taken out by one of Gisarm's attacks. Jian notices that the demons are crossing the river to head across the bank, and if they get around them, they will be trapped. Albert tells everyone to get back to the river bank, and Silpha is reluctant to do that as she is so close to meeting Lloyd. Gisarm then asks Lloyd if this is more convenient for him, and Lloyd states that it is. Gisarm mentions that there is a considerable force down there, but strangely enough he is unable to pry his attention from Lloyd. He wonders if Lloyd feels the same, and Lloyd states that he doesn't, and he dodges one of Gisarm's attacks. While he is flying, Grimm tells him that he is worried about the others, but right now, they can't afford to take their eyes off of Gisarm. The scene then cuts to Albert and the soldiers fighting the demons, and they attack them with their enchanted swords. Seeing this, Lloyd thinks that he can let the others handle things down there, and he can focus completely on Gisarm. The soldiers still keep attacking the demons with their swords, and the demons keep regenerating. Albert thinks that this is causing some damage, but he doesn't know what to do about the bodies of the demons. Jian also attacks them with Delord, but this is also not enough to kill the demons. He asks Albert what they should do, and Albert thinks that the spellbound swords use the mana of the soldiers, and at this rate, they are going to run out of mana before the demons stop regenerating. If they keep blasting, the smoke is going to make it hard for their best melee fighters like Liru and Silpha to get close. He thinks that he has to arrange things so that Liru and Silpha can get closer, and he notices that Silpha is not here. We then see Silpha trying to cross the bridge by riding Shiro, but the Assassin's Guild tells her that this is impossible. Silpha understands, and she mentions that Shiro might be able to do this if he bites onto this rope. Galilei states that this is also not going to work, and Shiro thinks that he wants to see his master, and he jumps, but he falls into the river. Silpha then wonders if she can jump to the other side of the bridge, but before she can try, a demon attacks her, but she blocks. The demon then states that Silpha seems really confident in her sword skills, and he tells her that his associates are 10th class demons, but he is an 8th class demon, and a practitioner of the supreme swords of the netherworld. Hearing this, Silpha realizes that demons are classified into class, and she wonders what class of demon Pazuzu was. Silpha states that she is going to tell him an equally devastating news, and she mentions that he has a turd on his head. This makes the demon angry, and he mentions that it's just a hat. Elsewhere we see the soldiers still attacking the demons with fire magic, and Albert wonders if there is no way to save the people of Lordest who have been possessed by demons. One of the demons then tries to attack Albert, but Babylon kills the demon, and he wonders if Albert is willing to fight together for now. Albert agrees, and he states that Babylon didn't even hesitate one bit to kill that demon. Babylon mentions that Albert is a nice guy, and he reminds him of their former leader. He states that he knows that they are not really admirable people, and he is not going to make excuses about how they didn't have any other option of life, but they also don't take life lightly. He tells Albert that all these people are already done for, and all that's left of them now are demons with meat suits. There is no way to save them, as their minds are long dead. Albert thanks Babylon for the advice, and he prepares an attack. He states that the citizens of Lordest have been taken from, and humiliated, but they won't have to suffer anymore, as he is going to set them free. He then uses a powerful fire attack on the demons, and he tells his soldiers that from now on they are going to battle these demons with the intention of eradicating them. Albert gets weak after using such a large spell, and he tells the soldiers that they are going to avenge the loss of their neighbors, and make these usurpers suffer. We then see Silpha crossing swords with the demon, and they match each other blow for blow. The demon uses his demon blade form, and Silpha uses her House of Langley-style swordsmanship to face each other, and seeing the shockwave from their attacks, the members of the Assassin's Guild wonder who that maid is. We see that after the face-off the both of them receive an injury, but the demon heals instantly. He states that humans are no match for them, as they are able to exceed human limitations, and the members of the Assassin's Guild realize that Silpha will have to kill the demon in a single attack or he is going to keep regenerating. The demon then mentions that he has made up his mind, and he states that he doesn't want a blighted body anymore. He mentions that he will take her body, and this way his demon blade form can reach even greater heights. He will also be able to make use of her House of Langley-style swordsmanship, just like how he can use the Lordist style, and he uses the Lordist-style swordsmanship to attack Silpha, but she barely dodges the attack. The demon states that this is the sword style that the owner of this body used, and he mentions that the people of Lordest were known for their martial interests, and this man was quite skilled. He shows the calloused hands of his possessed body, and he mentions that he can imagine how much effort this guy put in his training. He mentions that he remembers that there was some kind of metal ring on his finger, but it was in the way, so he threw it away. He must have had some great experience in his life, and now those memories, and all of his experiences belong to him. He mentions that humans are like clothing to them, and he is going to wear her until she is in tatters. Silpha then attacks the demon using his demon sword style, and the demon blocks, but he is surprised that she can use his demon blade forms. She mentions that she just learned it by watching him, and she can't believe that he can't even steal a technique without stealing the body. She wonders if there is poop filled inside of his head as well, and this makes the demon mad. Shiro then climbs up the bridge, and the demon states that having a bear wolf on her side isn't going to change anything. Silpha looks for something inside of Shiro's fur, and she takes out a sword. She states that she will demonstrate to him what humanity's pursuit of wisdom can lead to, and she remembers that Lloyd is the one who gave this sword to her. Tien told her that him and Lloyd made this sword as thanks for Lloyd helping him out with the spellbound swords, and Lloyd stated that this sword doesn't have any flashy spells, but it was made especially to be as strong and flexible as possible. He mentioned that it can withstand her full power, and she can even cut a demon with it. He explained to her that demons are psychic entities, but they can't do much damage without a physical body. This is why they either construct their own body or possess humans. Even while being possessed by a demon, the human body's construction is the same, and if the body dies, the demon will die as well. The only problem is that when a human body is under the control of the demon, it can be really powerful, and it will take a serious attack to deal any kind of damage, and even that damage can be regenerated instantly. Tien asked him how they are supposed to defeat demons in this case, and Lloyd states that they just need to strike them down with a single powerful attack. Silpha then asked Lloyd why he focused on strength and flexibility while creating her sword, and Lloyd told her that whenever she swings a sword, it's like she is always holding back, so he thought that maybe she can't go all out because she was worried about her sword. Silpha was happy that Lloyd was paying this kind of attention to her, and she hugged him. She mentioned that she will cherish this sword, and Yen stated that they should call this blade Delofa as a combination of all of their names, but Silpha liked the name Loifa better. She thought that it would be great to name this sword Loifa, but she would like to name this blade with an eye towards redeeming her recent failure, and she named the blade Demon Bane. Back in the present she draws Demon Bane, and the demon states that her sword is not going to change anything. He mentions that the future of this country is set in stone, and they are going to have an onslaught here with no rhyme and reason. He mentions that this plan was originally concocted to lure Jade out, but once they had taken these bodies they stirred up the tidings of war, and Jade came running home. Ren can't believe that they used such a dirty trick to bring Jade here, and she tries to fight the demon, but Silpha stops her. She mentions that this is her fight, and she defeats the demon with a single attack. The story then goes back in time, and before dying Jade states that he has finally done it. Gisarm asks him if he has made peace with his death, and Jade tells Gisarm that he is not going to let him get away with this. He mentioned that Gisarm is going to lose, and he died. Gisarm then completely took control of his body, and he wondered what Jade was trying to do before he died. He noticed that he can use Jade's power now, and he also has his memories. He notices Jade's friends in his memories, and he can sense something else deeper inside, but he can't see it because of them. The sword demon then congratulated Gisarm on taking control of Jade's power, and he asked him what they should do next. Gisarm stated that Jade was terrified of war, so they should start a big one. The story returns to the present, and Silpha sits by the body of the sword demon. She mentions that the owner of this body must have been a swordsman of great regard when he was alive. She states that she would have loved sparring with his lord's style, and she notices that Ren is crying at his death. She asks Ren if she knew him, but Ren states that she didn't, but she thinks that he was happy. Silpha then mentions that they are not cut out to be assassins, and we see that Galilei and Crow have figured out that Silpha is actually the Silver Blader. The water in the lake then suddenly turns into steam, and seeing this Silpha and the others wonder what happened here. We then see Lloyd in the sky, and he thinks that he can't see anything in this steam. He wonders if he made the wrong call, and he remembers that he was being attacked by several of Gisarm's mana spears, and he thought that he needs to figure out a better way to deal with Gisarm's attacks. He realized that those mana spears come in a few different patterns, but they are all fundamentally the same. They can pierce through a single and double-layered barrier with ease, and if he is hit by them, then it will mean instant death, but it won't be a problem as long as he keeps a heavy-duty reinforced barrier up at all times. Cursed speech is the only thing that can pass through his barrier, and Lloyd thought that it won't be a problem as cursed speech travels slowly, but he found out that Gisarm can use the mana spears as means of transmitting the cursed speech. He realized that now he will have to block with the barrier while also taking evasive maneuvers, and he thought that this is getting tricky. Gisarm then attacked Lloyd with his Shadow Wolf, but Lloyd dodged, and he mentioned that this is the most dangerous attack. To avoid this, he will have to keep moving at high speeds, and if he slows down for more than 2 seconds, Gisarm is going to lock onto him with this attack. He thought that if he were in Gisarm's place, he would go all out with offense and keep blasting until his target runs out of stamina. This is annoying, and he decided to switch to attacking. He used double casting, and he deployed a fire spell in less than 2 seconds. Gisarm thought that getting hit by this attack isn't going to kill him, but he doesn't want his clothes to burn up, and he dodged. Lloyd realized that he should have expected this, and the fire attack then evaporated the entire river. Afterwards, back in the present, Lloyd searches for Gisarm using his spatial detection chi technique, and he thinks that he has to track Gisarm with spatial detection at all times, as Shadow Wolf lets him teleport anywhere at any time. He then finds Gisarm, and he wonders what Gisarm is doing over there. Grim then warns Lloyd to keep moving or Gisarm is going to attack him with Shadow Wolf, but Lloyd starts to move. While moving, he wonders why Gisarm didn't attack him when he was stopped for a while there, and he wonders how he is locating him in the first place. He questions if it was easy for him to send that letter because he knew the exact location he was aiming at, and he remembers that Gisarm said that they might not be able to locate the members of the Assassin's Guild if they let them get away. He realizes that Gisarm is using his line of sight to locate his targets, and he thinks that all this steam can work in his favor if this is the case. Lloyd then stops, and Grim worries about him, but he notices that there are no attacks, and Lloyd tells him that Gisarm needs to see them to attack them. He thinks that he just has to get close enough to attack him with this sword, but he will notice him if he gets close, and he will lose his advantage. He wonders what he should do, and Gisarm thinks that he didn't expect Lloyd to evaporate the river. He can't see a thing right now, but if he waits long enough, Lloyd will reveal himself. Lloyd then attacks Gisarm with a bunch of his clones made with earth, and Gisarm can't tell which is the real one. All of them attack Gisarm with swords, and Gisarm finds the one who is wielding a real sword, and he attacks him. He states that Lloyd shouldn't have used his real body to attack him, and he realizes that Lloyd wanted to use physical attacks since magic attacks are not working, but physical attacks aren't going to work on him either. He mentions that Lloyd can crush his brain or pulp his heart, but he will regenerate in an instant, and he explains that this is how he dealt with Jade's attempts at suicides. He states that he can also harden his body to be as tough as iron, and he only let Lloyd stab him because he wanted to know which one of his clones was real. He mentions that Lloyd should be proud, as he did manage to touch his body even if it was for an instant, and he wonders when these clones are going to disappear. He then notices that the one he killed just now was a clone, and Gisarm realizes that Lloyd gave his real sword to one of the clones. He wonders where Lloyd's real body is in this case, and Lloyd picks up his sword. Gisarm thinks that the safest position right now would be above, as Lloyd can get a strategic view of the battlefield from there, but the real Lloyd attacks Gisarm with fire magic from left. He then shuffles his position with his clones, and he thinks that this is working out pretty well for a plan that he thought up at the spur of the moment. Gisarm then changes his clothes with teleportation, and he states that he can teleport without seeing, but he can't teleport to a destination he is unsure of. Thanks to these decoys, his shadow wolf has been neutralized, but there are plenty of ways to deal with them. Lloyd then thinks that these clones are only capable of silly dancing, and there are plenty of ways that this could go badly for him, but he has a plan. Gisarm then uses his mana spears to attack all the clones in the area, and one of his spears gets stopped by a heavy-duty barrier. Gisarm attacks the Lloyd inside the barrier thinking that this is the real one, but he finds out that this is also a fake. He then realizes that there are decoys with barriers mixed among the clones, and he wonders if this means that everyone with a barrier is a fake. Gisarm thinks that this is unlikely, and he mentions that running around without protection in this onslaught would be idiocy. The real one should be one of the shielded ones, and he can't believe that he has to think so hard about overcoming this inferior creature. He mentions that this is more fun than fighting a demonic legion, and he is sure that the seventh prince feels the same. We then see that Lloyd is hiding his presence with one of his spells, and he is closing in on Gisarm while dodging his attacks. He doesn't have a barrier around him, and Grim thinks that this is too dangerous. He wonders what Lloyd is trying to do that is worth taking this big of a risk, and he remembers that Lloyd explained to him that his sword can absorb spells, and he can either analyze the spells they have absorbed, or use them to increase their mana. It's called Spell Taker, and Grim thought that this is amazing, and Lloyd told him that this will help him study all kinds of magic. Lloyd then cuts Gisarm's teleportation magic with his sword, and Grim realizes that Lloyd wants to analyze the Shadow Wolf spell. He can't believe that Lloyd wants to do this in the middle of a fight like this, and he thinks that Lloyd should just give up as this is impossible. He mentions that this is a good chance for him to run away as Gisarm hasn't figured out that he is using Obscure, but he realizes that Lloyd is never going to run away. He would never turn his back on undiscovered magic, and he mentions that this is the only person he has ever acknowledged, and he is the biggest magic maniac in the world. He thinks that Lloyd should take out this demon, and bring peace to Jade's soul, and Lloyd analyzes the Shadow Wolf spell. After looking through it for a while, he manages to finish analyzing the spell, and he destroys his clones to reveal his real self. Gisarm finds out that Lloyd was hiding with a spell, and after noticing his bloody cheek, he figures out that he didn't have a barrier up. Gisarm asks him if he is bored with his clones now, and Lloyd states that he is because now he understands. Gisarm mentions that it took him really long to realize that he can't do anything against him, and he asks Lloyd why he is fighting in the first place. He mentions that it can't be because he pities those fools, and he states that he is not like them, he is broken in some way, just like him. He tells the seventh prince to come with him, and they will have their fun across the entire world, and Lloyd tells him that all of Gisarm's methods are boring and plain. He was born rather powerful, but this is all he has, and he mentions that humans may be weak, but they live life struggling with what they lack. This is why they are able to build such incredible things, and magic is a good example of this. Every single spell that has ever been formed is rooted in their dreams, like the desire to fly, or the wish to shoot fire. This is why their potential is limitless, and sorcery is infinitely interesting. Gisarm mentions that he doesn't care about any of this, and he tries to attack Lloyd with Shadow Wolf, but Lloyd punches him in the gut. He mentions that he didn't use mana in that attack, he used chi techniques, but he did use sorcery to strengthen his lungs and increase the amount of chi in his attack. He tells Gisarm that sorcery learns from all fields of knowledge and all phenomena to evolve, and Gisarm wonders how Lloyd knew where he would be teleporting. Lloyd then asks Gisarm what he is going to show him now, and he mentions that Gisarm should hurry up and get on his feet. Gisarm gets angry that a human is trying to rush him, and he wonders if his lucky shot is giving him a big head. Lloyd then asks him if he remembers what Jade told him with his last breath, and this reminds him that Jade told him that he is going to lose. Gisarm then uses Shadow Wolf to attack once again, but Lloyd kicks him, and he attacks Gisarm a few more times, and Gisarm can't do anything. Lloyd keeps beating him up, and Gisarm thinks that this hurts, but the damage isn't a problem as he can just regenerate, and the real issue is how Lloyd is predicting his Shadow Wolf. Lloyd then sends Gisarm flying with a magic attack, and he ends up at the hole that Lloyd dug up with his spell earlier. Lloyd kicks him into the magma, and since Gisarm doesn't know his exact location, he can only use his line of sight to teleport, but Lloyd predicts his movements, and he keeps attacking Gisarm. He then thinks that spellbooks have always made his imagination run wild, whether it's in this life, or his previous one. While reading about a new spell, he always wonders what the people who created these spells were like, and he did this because imagining them was all he could do. Encountering people like that is something that they can maybe get to do once in their lifetime, if they are lucky, and this is why he wanted to meet Jade. Lloyd then asks Gisarm if he is seriously out of ideas, and he mentions that this is not fun at all. He states that Gisarm will have to die if this is the case, and Gisarm tells him to not worry, and he explains that the biggest difference between a demon and a demon lord is that the latter can freely control atmospheric mana. Gisarm then uses the mana in the atmosphere to create a large sphere of magic called Mortal Dark Sphere, and he mentions that this will be the end of the line for Lloyd, as no barrier or magic can stop this attack. Gisarm then releases the Mortal Dark Sphere on Lloyd, and Lloyd makes it vanish in an instant. Gisarm wonders what happened to his Mortal Dark Sphere, and Lloyd states that he erased it by hitting it with a similar technique. Gisarm is surprised that someone like Lloyd can also use the Mortal Dark Sphere, and Lloyd explains that he used a spell called Void. He mentions that it's a spell which cannot be stopped by any barriers, or whatever else the enemy tries, and it casts the target into another dimension, and reduces them to dust. Lloyd states that the only difference between their two spells is the name, and he mentions that a long time ago, after learning about this spell, he blew away all kinds of things using it. He then thought that this spell is amazing, and he wondered what would happen if two instances of this collided, so he set them up to collide, and he conducted an experiment. Gisarm thinks that this is insane as a single Mortal Dark Sphere uses up crazy amounts of mana, and Lloyd mentions that he was excited about the results of his experiments thinking that it would result in a miraculous reaction, but the spells just vanished after colliding. At that time he felt as disappointed as he is with Gisarm right now, and Gisarm gets angry hearing this. He can't believe that a mere human was using the imitation of the Supreme Demon Lord art, and he was playing with them. He states that having a little more mana doesn't make Lloyd any less of a trash, and he tells him that he is going to take possession of his body, and put this mana pool to good use. He then tries to do that, but when he touches Lloyd, he notices that his mana pool is bigger than what anyone can imagine. Lloyd then asks Gisarm if he is going to die if he hits him with Void, and he launches several Void spells on him, and one of them gets him. Elsewhere we see Albert and Dien fighting the demons, and they can't see anything because of the steam that Lloyd created. Dien mentions that this is a good opportunity as the demons should be having the same problem, and Liru, Shiro, and Silpha use their noses to track the enemy and defeat them. Silpha notices that the demons are moving more sluggishly, and she can smell a strange sweet scent in the air. Ren then tells everyone to not breathe in too deeply, as she is spreading her poison in the air. She is making sure that it doesn't reach them, but she still doesn't have perfect control over it. Silpha then realizes that she is not just some exhibitionist, and Rin tells her that she dresses like this because it helps her disperse her poison more effectively. Albert then notices that he can't tell what's going on, and he thinks that they might be able to see better if the sun comes up. He checks the time, and he thinks that the sun should already be up by now. Tien mentions that they might not be able to see it because of the steam, and the Assassin's Guild then look above, and they notice that what they are seeing is not the night sky. We find out that the darkness is Lloyd's mana spreading around, and we notice Gisarm being taken in by a void spell. He tries to resist, but the spell sucks in any mana that he tries to use. He thinks that he would have to abandon this body, but when he tries to do it, rigor mortis kicks in, and he can't leave the body. He finds out that there is no escaping this power, and he tries to pretend that he is Jade and he has regained control of his body, and he tells Lloyd to stop the attack, but this doesn't fool Lloyd. He casts another void spell on him from the other side, and he crushes Gisarm between the two spells. Lloyd then suppresses his mana, and the sun comes out. We see Jade's spirit thanking him, and Grim cries for Jade. Rin then remembers the time when Jade told them that there is an urban legend about the seventh prince, and he mentioned that on the day he was born, there was an incident at the royal castle. Talia remembered that the celebratory fireworks went off early that day, and Jade told them that those fireworks might have been a spell cast by the seventh prince, the moment he was born. Galilei mentioned that this is ridiculous, and he asked Jade what the point of this story is, and Jade told him that it's nothing, but it is kind of cool. He stated that if there was really a magical prodigy like this in the world, then he might be able to pull them out of their curses and this hole, and take them to the light of day. Galilei then told him that he should bring them some proper work instead of gossip, and he mentioned that if this turns out to be true, he will serve the seventh prince for the rest of his life. The scene then cuts to Lloyd making a grave for Jade, and Grim wonders if he is sure about having this grave so far away from the others. Lloyd states that he is, and he mentions that there is no body here, it's more like a memorial, as void consumes everything. Grim then states that he is impressed that Lloyd actually managed to land the void spell, as that spell is pretty slow moving. Lloyd explains that it's all thanks to him deciphering Shadow Wolf, and he formulated a spell which let him detect when it was being used. After that it was just a matter of linking this with his reflexes, and casting void, and this way he was able to dodge and pursue automatically. Grim can't believe that he was able to figure out a complex spell like Shadow Wolf while toying with Gisarm, and Lloyd mentions that Gisarm was strong, and it was foolish of him to try to decipher this spell in the middle of battle, but he needed to do this if he wanted to land an attack on him. He also wouldn't have been satisfied if he couldn't figure out this spell, but Grim mentions that he did figure it out in the end. Lloyd states that he only managed to do this because the Shadow Wolf spell was clearly laid out for him, and he explains that at the end of his life, Jade actually managed to transcribe a complete spell for Shadow Wolf. He left it behind thinking that someone would have to rise to the challenge of finding a way to overcome it, and he states that it was not him who won this fight, it was Jade. Ren listens to all this, and it brings a tear to her eye. Lloyd then notices that the grave marker is a little crooked, and he tries to fix it, and Ren thinks that she needs to tell Lloyd how grateful she is to him. Albert then comes to Lloyd, and Grim hides. Albert asks him whose grave this is, and we see that he already knows that it's the grave of the former leader of the Assassin's Guild, and the previous ruler of Lourdes named Jade. He mentions that he knows the whole story, and he states that after learning of Jade's revolt, the Assassin's Guild came to him, an expert in sorcery, for help in dealing with Jade, but when they got here, they encountered a horde of demons, and one of them was wearing Jade's body. Hearing this, Grim thinks that the Assassin's Guild must have cooked up a story, and Albert mentions that the Assassin's Guild has also told him how they've lived and what kind of ambitions they have. He states that he is proud of his little brother for the way he acted to help them, and the fact that he defeated a demon on his own, but sadly things are not this simple. The members of the Assassin's Guild have been taken into custody, and Ren will be joining them once she has been found. They are residents of the underworld who killed for a living, and they effectively kidnapped a member of the royal family, and dragged him into a war. These are serious charges, and they have said that they want to make amends by serving Lloyd for the rest of their lives, and if this is not possible, they are ready to accept any punishment deemed necessary. They are really earnest about this, and there is not even a need to restrain them. This just leaves what Lloyd wants to do, and he tells him that this is not like adopting a pet. If these outlaws become his retainers, and they commit some blunder, Lloyd will be held responsible, and he asks Lloyd what's his decision. Lloyd states that everything that Albert said is quite reasonable, and he mentions that he will take them under his wing. He states that he will take full responsibility for their blunders, and Albert accepts this. He then tells Lloyd that being the seventh prince doesn't mean that people don't care for him, and he states that Lloyd shouldn't be so distant. He mentions that he should ask for help if he ever needs it, and he tells him that before being a prince, he is his little brother. The others are happy to see this touching moment, and Albert snuggles up to Lloyd, and he can't believe how fast his little brother is growing. Tien realizes that Albert just wanted his little brother to come crying to him for help, and Tao then comes running there. She states that she heard that Lloyd was in trouble, so she came running, but she notices the looks of everyone around here. She finds out that the show is over. She then tries to run away in shame, but Albert tells Silpha to stop her, as they still haven't thanked her for the other day, and they go after her. Grim then tells Lloyd that he is really sweet for helping out the Assassin's Guild, and he mentions that he only helped them because they embody potential new frontiers for magic. He doesn't want to let any more possibilities like that be snuffed out, and Grim accepts this explanation. Afterwards, Silpha captures Tao, and the soldiers free the members of the Assassin's Guild as well. They are happy that they are being taken in by Lloyd, and they mention that they are going to serve him with all they have. The scene then cuts to everyone having a tea party, as this is what Tao requested as her reward, but she is not quite comfortable with doing this beside a grave. She is also nervous because so many princes and princesses are here, and Albert tells her to not worry about this as this is just a casual gathering. He mentions that she should enjoy herself, and Tao then asks Silpha for some tea, but Silpha purposely drops the tea on her. The two of them then start fighting, and Albert tells the members of the Assassin's Guild to set loose as well, but they mention that this type of gathering is not their cup of tea. They would rather be raucous while seeing off their former leader, and Albert mentions that they should party in their style in this case. Galilei and the others are not sure about this, but after a while we see them being as raucous as they want, and they cry over the loss of Jade while being drunk. Albert is surprised to see that this is how the common folk have a tea party, and he mentions that they should try something like this at the palace someday, but the others are not sure about this. Teria then asks Albert if he is not going to have any drinks, and he states that he will have to pass since he is here on royal business. Teria doesn't like the sound of this, and she shares her feeling of being drunk with Albert. Albert then remembers that Galilei still hasn't explained how Lloyd wound up being covered in his fluids, and he gets angry at him. The others realize that he is an angry drunk, and they then notice that Silpha, Ren, and Elise are not here. We see that the three girls are taking a dip in the hot springs that was created after Lloyd's fight, and Silpha wonders if Ren wants to say something to them since she followed them here. Ren tells Silpha that she wants to work alongside Lloyd just like her, and she mentions that she wants to be near him to show him how grateful she is. She swears that she won't do anything to disappoint him, and Silpha tells her that this isn't the kind of thing that she can personally decide. Ren will have to ask Lloyd about this herself, and Lloyd agrees to this. Ren is surprised to see that he is here as well, and Silpha mentions that she dragged him along as he was dirty. Ren then asks Lloyd if he is sure about this, as she has hurt many people, and she is also a poison blighted. Lloyd tells her that she still has many things to work on, and he mentions that for starters, she will have to stop calling herself blighted. He states that none of them have really come to terms with their natural-born strengths, and he tells her that if she can better understand the kind of poison she produces, she will be able to break down its components, and become a pharmacist, and save lives. Ren is surprised to hear this, and Lloyd tells her that medicine and poison are two sides of the same coin. He mentions that she needs to decipher her power in detail, and make it into normal sorcery, and formulate it as a spell. He states that she can consider this a long-term assignment, and she is happy that Lloyd has accepted her for all she is, including her power. She remembers that he never called her a blighted, and he tells her to work hard, and Ren mentions that she will. Afterwards we see Lloyd back at the castle, and we find out that Ren has started to serve as his maid just like Silpha. We notice that Albert has made a story for the king to keep Lloyd out of trouble, and Lloyd is happy that no one found out about his real power, and now he can continue researching magic as much as he likes. Thanks for watching the entire series. Please like and share the video if you enjoyed it, and make sure to hit the subscribe button, and turn on the notification bell to keep getting new anime recap updates.